Good morning. You ready for me?
We're ready to go.
All right, great. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, July 2nd Town Board Work Session. Carol, if you could please read the roll call.
Present. Present.
Present.
Present.
Present. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we start this morning's meeting with public portion. Some folks may have already signed up. If you haven't had a chance to sign up, we'll ask for, a show of hands of who would like to address the board. We ask you to kindly keep your comments to 3 minutes. And then we move on to topics. We've got Jeannie Carrozza presenting bids and Steve O'Brien going over an engineering RFP. And then we have some East Hampton High School, I guess one graduate and some young women that are still attending the school. Lola Garneau, Stella Peterson, Stella Brecker, and Sophie Riva are going to be making a presentation for a Rewild Long Island, the summer program. Then we have Lori Wilshire here from Land Planning Services to just make a request of a zone change on 3 Mile Harbor Road. And then lastly, we have the consultants Peter Flinker, Lisa LaCorey, and Vin Corrado, who will be presenting a draft of the Wayne-Scott Hamlet Plan Implementation Phase 1. We follow that with liaison reports, and then we do our resolutions. So let me first start. Carol, is there anyone signed up that wishes to address the board? Great. Okay, first up is Gail Pellet. Welcome, Gail.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to speak today. I'm Gail Pellet, and I'm addressing the board as a resident of East Hampton because I have a number of hats in this community, where my husband and I have lived either part or full-time for almost 40 years. I'm here to support East Hampton's Energy and Sustainability Committee's efforts to ban gas leaf blowers and other gas-powered lawn maintenance equipment in our town. I'm going to speak rapidly because of the 3 minutes. Some 100 communities across the country have either banned the use and sales or seriously regulated this antiquated, polluting, and health hazardous technology. So what's wrong with gas-powered leaf blowers? First, gas-powered lawnmowers, together with leaf blowers, consume over 800 million gallons of gasoline annually in the U.S. By burning fossil fuels, they contribute to our carbon and greenhouse gas crisis that contributes to global warming and climate change. Gas-powered leaf blowers contribute to the pollution of our groundwater and bays through leaking gas. They are based on an antiquated technology called the two-stroke engine that is inefficient, leaks gas, and has been phased out for mopeds and moto taxis and the like around the world. The two-stroke engine is dirtier and less fuel efficient than the four-step engine used in cars because it sloshes together a mixture of gasoline and oil in the combustion chamber and then spews out as much as 1/3 of that fuel as an unburned aerosol. I'm quoting here James Fallow's 2019 article in The Atlantic. Fallows was part of a community movement that ultimately banned gas-powered leaf blowers in Washington, D.C. One study of the two-stroke engine revealed that a gas leaf blower emits almost 300 times the hydrocarbons and 23 times the carbon monoxide compared to a 2011 Ford 150 crew cab pickup truck. I've got references in the written thing for this. The California Air Resources Board found that 1 hour of a running gas blower generates the same smog forming emissions as one car driving 1,100 miles. The gas that leaks from those engines combines with the pesticide and nitrogen-loaded fertilizers used on lawns to create a lethal brew in our groundwater and local bays. Consequently, those emissions, whether contributing to air pollution or water pollution, have health hazards for our community. Then there's the noise pollution. The tranquility of our beautiful natural landscape is turned into a dystopian nightmare by this deafening noise. We all know about it here. The average gas-powered leaf blower pushing 300 to 700 cubic feet of air per minute at 150 to 280 miles per hour creates decibel levels around 80 to 95 dB. The World Health Organization recommends that general daytime outdoor noise levels should not go above 55 dB, warning that sustained noise levels above that can lead to a range of disorders, from high blood pressure and heart disease to depression. It certainly can lead to tinnitus and hearing loss. For workers, these gas-powered leaf blowers are even more dangerous. They may generate noise levels of over 105 dB right at the source for workers. Do we care so little about the health of our environment and us? How can we offer up economic rationales in defense of landscapers investing in and using this equipment against the serious environmental and health consequences?
Gail, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay, my last paragraph, we once changed the laws in this country to ban cigarette smoking in public places and buildings based on the research about health hazards of secondhand smoke. Well, leaf blowers are a more serious crisis. They're contributing to climate change, global warming, air and water pollution, and human health problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Stefan Van Dam. Welcome, Stefan.
Good morning, Board Supervisor. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Beach Road, and I'd like to talk about the damage done by gas leaf blowers to our community. Gas leaf blowers emit significant quantities of toxic substances. These substances include fine particulate matter, formaldehyde, benzene, and smog-forming pollutants. These toxins all have been linked to health problems such as dizziness, headaches, asthma attacks, heart and lung illness, cancer, and dementia. A new report on the impacts of gas-powered lawn and garden equipment in Massachusetts estimated the devices generated more than 600,000 tons of carbon dioxide in 2020 alone, an amount equivalent to the pollution from about 135,000 standard vehicles. Noise is regarded as a public health hazard. It causes a series of stress reactions that increase the risk of heart disease, heart attack, and stroke. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, a federal agency, extended exposure to sounds at or above 85 decibels can damage hearing. Many gas-powered leaf blowers exceed those levels. Frankly, there isn't a day when we don't wake up to the incessant noise of leaf blowers. Since we regulate loud music, why do we exempt gas leaf blowers? The New York State Constitution provides for the quiet enjoyment of one's property. On November 2nd, 2021, New York voters approved an amendment to the state constitution's Bill of Rights, providing that each person shall have the right to clean air and water and to a healthful environment. In those 16 words, the right to a healthy environment was, for the first time, cloaked in constitutional protection in New York and deemed the equivalent to the 16 current constitutional guarantees in the state's Bill of Rights. Love the leaves. Leaves are the natural fertilizers nature relies on. Blowing leaves not only removes this natural protective layer where insect life overwinters, but it kills the very beneficial insects we rely on to pollute our food chain. This is a damage we can ill afford as it risks our very survival. Let's look at the cost-benefit health analysis. The argument that gas leaf blowers preserve jobs is erroneous. It is an outdated technology that only causes harm to us and to the environment. While transitioning to zero-emission machinery will lead to added upfront cost to landscapers, that will be offset by the money they save in fuel, maintenance, and repairs. The reduced emissions will prevent hundreds of premature deaths, as well as lower healthcare costs for those affected by the carbon emissions. Given the astronomical cost of healthcare in our community, the cost-benefit health analysis is clear. Let's move away from a technology that makes us sick physically and mentally. And let's imagine how raking leaves will pad the pockets of landscapers and help restore peace to our neighborhoods. Outright bans on the gas-powered machines have recently taken effect in more than 150 cities and towns across the U.S., among them Washington, D.C., Miami Beach, and even Evanston, Illinois. California will end the sale of gas-powered blowers in a program called SOAR, S-O-R-E. Their racket will also be silenced in Portland, Oregon, and Seattle. So let's join other enlightened communities who value peace and health over poisons and pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Next up is Carolyn Logan Gluck. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you. Good morning, Supervisor Burke Gonzalez and members of the town board. My name is Carolyn Logan Gluck, and I'm the chair of the Wayne Scott Citizens Advisory Committee. I'm also president of the Wayne Scott Tree Society.
Could you just talk into the mic so that...
Is this better? Hello?
Yes.
That's great.
I'm here to say thank you. Thank you so much to the supervisor for putting the Wayne Scott Hamlet Plan implementation plan on today's agenda. We've been beyond anxious and eager to hear this report, which is the culmination of 5 meetings that were held across several months, over 2 years ago. And so it was really, really wonderful to be able to look through the PowerPoint presentation and the report. I have to say I haven't gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, so I simply want to speak in generalities this morning and note that I think it's a very fair and comprehensive report of what transpired across those meetings. It's also incredibly packed with recommendations and information. And so for being just a distillation of some priorities from the Hamlet Plan, even this set of priorities needs to be prioritized, I think. And I want to thank the town board for welcoming input from the CAC as to how the South Fork Wind Wayne Scott funds might be applied. And I would like to just note in this setting that subcommittee that's been formed to address that feels that those funds of $5.5 million, the rest of which will be paid to the town early next year, should be applied towards improving the Wayne Scott Business District. Of course, those $5.5 million are vastly insufficient, and we see that when we look at some of the costs that have been estimated in that report. I wanted to just talk about priorities since it is such a vast report. And one thing that I would say is that I advocate for the SAT approach. I don't know if you remember back in high school, your advisor was telling you, just go through the SAT, answer all the questions that you know you can get right away, and then circle back and tackle the ones that you need a little more time to think about. And I think we see that approach might work here and that there is some quote unquote low-hanging fruit. And I'd say, go for it in terms of implementing the streetscape plan and the highway improvements, namely decreasing the speed limit and reducing the travel lane widths. And as far as the streetscape plan, I have to say that there's a sequence there. If we want to make Wayne Scott walkable, we need sidewalks. If we want people to use the sidewalks, they need to be shaded. If we want the trees to flourish, they need to not be growing under power lines. So we need to think about the sequencing. And I have to say, on behalf of members of the Tree Society who are here, there's a number of us here today, we're delighted to be mentioned in this report, and we will be delighted to partner with the town, but we are a fledgling organization. We deal in numbers in the 4 digits and not in the 6 digits, and so it's beyond our ability to shoulder what's proposed in the plan, and I hope that we can have support and help partner with you in getting the area north of the highway greened in an appropriate way. The elephant in the room is the pit. Oh, sorry, time. The elephant in the room is the pit. It's number 4 on the list, but it is the most important of all of the recommendations and needs to be addressed. I cannot emphasize to you how important it is to continue the pursuit of acquisition of the land at the pit and its cleanup. So I leave you with that thought. Thank you very much. I'm sorry
Thank
for
you,
running
Carolyn.
over.
Just so folks at home know, the LTV feed went out for a minute, but we're back up live again. So now I'll take a show of hands of who wants to address the board. Sarah?
Good morning, members of the board. Sarah Davison with Friends of Georgia Capon Foundation. I want to also thank you for bringing the implementation plan for the Wayne Scott Hamlet study up to the fore. And I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge former Councilwoman Sylvia Overby's work on this project. I think the PowerPoint presentation that we're going to see, which I was able to skim very quickly, fairly accurately reflects the discussions and the sentiment of the committee that I served on, and Carolyn, and regarding the improvements to the Wayne Scott Business District. So I think Carolyn's comments are very helpful in going forward in terms of prioritizing. But I did want to state, I don't think I saw in the report, but we'll view it again and see, but I don't believe I saw that there any proposal about full acquisition of the pit property. And there were extensive discussions in our committee on alternate uses for that property, including some that are in the presentation, but others that were not included in the presentation. And so I think there's a lot of public opportunity for moving forward on that property, despite the obstacles and the challenges there. I think we need to keep pushing forward with a great vision for the future for that property. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's hear from the students. Why don't you come up one at a time? And when you come up, if you could just introduce your name so that the clerk can get it for the minutes. That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. Also, just before I start, I would like to say, excuse our attire. We were just working at Longhouse's Gardens for Rewild, and that's what we're here to talk about today. We're kind of just talking about what Rewild is as a program, what it means to us, and then also how it helps our community.
So first you're going to introduce yourself.
No, I'm going to do that, yeah.
Good.
Okay. Hello, my name is Griffin Beckman. I'm a rising junior at East Hampton High School, and this summer is my first with Rewild, more specifically the South Fork chapter. Through our work in the town's bioswales, Share the Harvest Fields, and Longhouse's first native plant garden, its exposure-induced experiential learning has seriously impacted us. As opposed to blindly ripping out weeds, we learn about what it means to be a native species or an invasive one, and exactly why we do what we do. On top of this, at various farmers markets, we've built our skills in information dissemination as we collect food scraps that will be turned into compost, and we spread the word about eco-friendly land care practices. It's more than obvious that every single member of the Rewild team is dedicated and passionate about the work we put in and day out. but we also have immense fun, laughing so hard we fall on the floor. When we're together, it feels like a family and an amazing place to be, as everyone shares a similar drive to help our local environment. I am personally really interested in a career in environmental studies, and one just revolving around environmental science itself. And this program has seriously helped me to better understand what environmentalism looks like in a real world application. Oh, and thank you to all.
And when you graduate from school, we'll show you downstairs where Human Resources is, because we'd love to have you come work for the town. Come on up. I love your t-shirt.
Thank you.
Plant-based.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maya Taveras, and I'm also a rising junior. Rewild is really the definition of taking advantage of the opportunities that this community offers. It is a connection between the young adults and those experienced community members and experts in their field. It is not only educational, but enjoyable, as everyone is so welcoming and willing to get out of their comfort zone. And so far, I've loved getting to know everyone. And my favorite memory is this past week's farmers market in Springs, where we were hosting the compost section, which consisted, but the whole entirety of the event that day consisted of pastries, laughs, spicy pickles, and most importantly, compost and getting to know our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I am also a rising junior at East Hampton High School, and my name is Shirley Jen. I am super grateful to be a part of a program that is truly meaningful and inspiring. Just by attending some of the events from the start of the summer, for example, Share the Harvest, Composting in Springs, and Longhouse Reserve this morning, I've learned the importance of origins of where our food comes from and how just by participating can bring food onto a family's table. I've learned to be patient and really be one with nature, as this is already something that comes to human as instinct, to be outside and enjoying the sun. And most importantly, I've met people who care just as much and want to help our community and the earth just as I do. I'm really proud to be a part of this organization, and I'm beyond excited for what is waiting for us in nature this summer.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Len.
Good morning.
These are
I'm,
tough act to follow.
I know. I don't have any hope of comparing. I'm Len Green, one of the 3 co-founders of the South Fork Rewild Long Island chapter, and I'm here today not to speak for myself, but for a few students who couldn't show up. First, Stella Peterson from East Hampton High School, and here's her statement. Rewild is a special program that incorporates a multitude of life skills into learning about saving the environment. I really enjoy working with friends as South Fork team members because we get our hands dirty and become knowledgeable about local plant and animal species and how we can help them to thrive. It's so amazing becoming extra familiar with our hometown and making connections with people who have the same interests as you have. And Lily Kaplan from Pearson. Rewild is an inspiring way to give back to our community. It shows me the potential to make change in the world in a fun and exciting way. Matthew Chuya, East Hampton High School. The Rewild Summer Program focuses on bettering the biodiversity on the East End and on Earth, and the better for all plants and animals. It also teaches participants how important Mother Nature is and how it can be found all around us. Finally, this is not a student, but Chris Leem, who is the lead for the Surf Rounder Foundation Ocean Friendly Gardens program, who helps maintain the bioswales in East Hampton Village. Chris says, 5 out of the Rewild summer interns have worked with me at the East Hampton bioswales. They are prompt, enthusiastic, and hardworking. What a joy it is to work with such smart and fun young people. And I would say the same, what a joy. Just a plug for Rewild, we've put in gardens, native gardens from Queens to Montauk. We just put in a garden at Montauk Third House. The students will be going tomorrow to work at the East Hampton High School native garden, which was also donated by Rewild Long Island. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Len.
Yay! Good morning, everyone. I'm Gloria Frazee, East Hampton Energy and Sustainability Committee, but here I'm also with Rewild, East Hampton Compost, and I'm on the Rewild board, and along with Len and Nancy, co-founders of Rewild South Fork. East Hampton High School students Sophie Riva and Stella Brecker are presenting today. Lola and Stella Peterson couldn't be here because they're at work, and most of our participants juggle job and community at the same time. So they are really going above and beyond. They're going to be talking about Rewild Long Island South Fork Summer Program to fight hunger and climate change, two very important topics. I'm here to toot their horn because they're not going to toot it for themselves, because they're hardworking, they show up, and they're so enthusiastic, and we have so much fun. It's crazy. It really is family. It's like the best part of my year. Last year, Sofa and Stelly took a big leap of faith, along with Lola and Stella Peterson, and they participated in our very first Rewild Summer Program, an environmental internship program for high school students. This year, rather than just participating, they've taken the lead, and our youth organizers who spent more than 200 hours preparing for this summer's program. We started meeting in January to get it ready to launch when school finished. They, along with this year's participants, are totally amazing, collaborating with and contributing to the vital work of environmental organizations, making a difference right here in East Hampton and on the South Fork. They're learning and showing us how to care for all the members of our ecosystem, from the fungi in our soils that are necessary for plant and produce growth, and the oysters that filter our water. They've been working with South Fork sea farmers in the town shellfish hatchery, to the bumblebees that pollinate our tomatoes and eggplants. They are not pollinated by honeybees. And they're also showing how to care for us, the humans, who are part of nature. We're all part of the same community. We're all part of the same processes. We, each of us, play a pivotal role in our ecosystem with the decisions we make and how we care for our community members who depend on us and on whom we depend for our lives. I hope you encourage these amazing young people and join them in this important work. We need more volunteers. They have a lot to teach us. Thank you for listening and for caring.
I have to say, Gloria, I thought I had the best job in town, but I think you do, working with these, bright, energetic young people who want to, change our world. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else in the room that would like to address the board? David?
Good morning.
Good morning, David.
My name is David Fink. I've been a resident of Wainscott for more than 40 years. And primarily, I guess I should add, a former chair of the WCAC a number of years ago. But mainly, I'd like to just endorse and completely everything that Carolyn Logan and Sarah Davison have said. I have the feeling, maybe I'm wrong about it, but that over the last few years, the town board, or at least some of the former members, have not realized what a terrible impact the development of the wind farm has had on Wainscott. Trucks going up and down the streets. I mean, most of the roads have now fortunately been repaved, but that repaving wouldn't have been needed if there was not so much truck traffic for years. And talking about pollution, all those trucks were, emitting all sorts of noxious gases. And it just always struck me as kind of odd that for a project that's supposed to be green, their equipment and machinery was about as ungreen as could be. So in short, I think the town really, for lack of a better word, owes something to Wayne Scott in terms of helping us with trees. I should mention I'm also on the Tree Society, of just planting more trees, having the area be more green, putting in sidewalks where we'd like to encourage people to walk, and just avoiding, certainly letting the pit become more of a disaster than it already is. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Okay, Zach, are there any callers on the line?
So we got, let's see, first caller, unmuting now. And caller ending in 8764, you're on the air.
Good morning, Town Board. This is David Buda. I have,
David.
you have a long agenda, and you've had a lot of people speak, so I'll try to be brief. First, I just want to give a thank you to the entire board and to whoever in particular is responsible for changing a policy that I've been advocating for, or establishing a policy that I've been advocating for a very long time. Starting with the June 20th meeting, which I could not attend due to a birthday dinner, you have now decided, favorably, to release in advance of the CPF acquisition hearings those evaluation memoranda prepared by the planning board, the planning department, in those situations where there is a pre-purchase contract to purchase executed, and therefore it's a contingent contract. So for that matter that had a hearing on June the 20th, and another one that's coming up later this month, you have posted on your website those evaluation memos, and they were very helpful and useful to be able to see them before you actually acted on the acquisition. So thank you. Number two, you will have a presentation this morning from Ms. Wiltshire asking for a zone change, and which would also require a significant change in the affordable housing criteria in our zoning code to reduce the minimum size of an affordable housing area to either 40,000 or 1 acre, which frankly I think is much, much too small and would have too much of a drastic impact on any surrounding residential properties wherever the affordable housing developments in the future are built. To reduce the minimum size to 1 acre is really much, much too drastic. Three, you have a resolution on the agenda today, 873, which I have to make a general comment about, not this specific one, but I've said it in the past. Every time you send town employees for major junkets to the other side of New York State, in this case to Niagara Falls, for a conference, there's not mandatory, there's certainly educational, but in this day and age, most educational forums can be shared online or in written materials, and certainly does not require sending 2 people in the town employment for 4 days up to Niagara Falls. I really wish that someone would scrutinize these requests as they come in much more carefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Jason, are there other callers on the line?
Yes, there are. Caller 055. Oh, yeah, sorry, Jason just stepped out. Yes, there's one more. Caller 0555, you are now live. Oh.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor, for your patience. My name is Richard Rosenhaus. I live at 16 Elijah's Path, and I want to report to you an incident which happened to me the other day on Wainscott Stone Road. And imagine, if you will, Wainscott Stone Road runs north-south, south and north, of course. There was a perfect storm the other day when two cars met, one going north, one going south. When they were parallel, one guy came around Fernwood, knocking the guy going north, almost hitting a bicyclist, forcing him into the woods going head over tail. So I pulled my car over and I asked the bicyclist, "How are you?" And he said, "Did you get the license plate?" I said, "No, he was going too fast." The purpose of me telling you this, is it possible for the board to put in some speed bumps the way Sagaponack did? Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you, Richard. Zach, are there any other callers on the line?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. Jose, you wanted to address the board? Welcome, Jose. Nice
Thank
to
you,
see
Supervisor Bert Gonzalez. Nice to see you too. And nice to see the whole board. Thank you for this opportunity. I swear I did not plan it with the caller that just came through. However, my comments for you here today are, number one, to again, thank you for the implementation of the Wainscott-Hamlet study. This is very important to all of us. Other people have spoken about that. So I'm going to focus on something that's very important right now, and that is traffic calming situations. As we just heard from our caller, that could have been a very much deadlier situation, or certainly more serious than he experienced. We have recently been speaking and writing to the board about different efforts for traffic calming situations. Most recently, we have really been focused on the stop signs. And I do want to encourage you guys, as well as the rest of the town involved with the highway department and the police department, to issue as many of those stop signs as we possibly can. We definitely believe that this will be a great impediment to the speeding, which currently happens on an ongoing basis. And it's the summertime, so speeding is just going to have an increase in the number of cars that are speeding through our streets. I know that the speed bump situation is something that different towns and villages approach in a different manner. However, I will share that I have reached out to Sagaponack Village, spoken with their town clerk there, and have been assured that in the time that they've had their speed bumps, there has not been one accident, one issue with snow plowing, one issue with a bicyclist. So it has been very, very safe. All in all, they are very sure that their speed bumps have been very effective in calming of the traffic flow as well as the speeding. So for that, I want to share that we'd like the board and the highway department and the traffic department to reconsider it, the speed bumps, I mean, because there was no issue as far as insurance again, or any of the potential liabilities that were raised when we first talked about speed bumps. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose. I'm going to go one more time. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Otherwise, we'll start the topics. Okay. Last call. Jeannie, you want to join us here and discuss bids?
Sure.
Welcome,
Good
Jeannie.
morning. First bid to accept is the surplus oyster seed sale. The highest bidders for this, John Nicholas, East Hampton Oyster Company, at $21 per thousand for 3.3 millimeters. And then Robert Waif was the next highest bidder for the next two lots at $29 a thousand for less than 5/16 inch, and $36.25 per 1,000 for the 5/16 inch. Next bid is the supply and delivery of food items. Mavilla Foods is the apparent low bidder for that. And then also a couple of notices on, the first being a joint fuel facility maintenance service and the installation of an HVAC system at sanitation. And finally, we did an RFP for the professional engineering services for town projects. Steve O'Brien, the town's building maintenance supervisor, is here from the evaluation committee for the recommendation. And that's it.
Great. Thanks, Jeannie. Welcome, Steve. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, members of the board. I was part of the review committee. We reviewed 8 different engineers to take over for the town, all of them highly skilled, qualified. Our criteria was based on price, experience, education, but also being that we're in such a unique place, we wanted to find someone that had experience with historic buildings, historic reconstruction, and not so much an urban engineer, but someone that had a lot of experience with water table, water shedding, and a more rural area. From our review, we ended up with L.K. McLean. They've proven to the town to be a reliable source of information, assistance. They've done an excellent job in the years past on the projects we've had them in. And so our recommendation to the board is that we stay with them.
Does anyone have any questions for Steve? No. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next up is the Rewild presentation. Ladies, if you want to come up to the podium and introduce yourselves, and I don't know if, do you need someone to run your presentation on the PowerPoint, or?
If you have a clicker ready to do the way.
Yeah, or Patrick can help you. He can.
So, hello, I'm Sophie Riva. I'm a rising senior at East Hampton High School, and we are both so grateful for this opportunity to get to tell you about our wonderful program.
Hi, my name is Stella Brecker, and I'm a rising junior at the East Hampton High School.
So, yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you. So,
it's fine.
Okay, great. So as I said, I'm Sophie Riva. This is my second year as a Rewild student intern and my first as a student organizer. I am joined by my colleague, Stella Brecker, a second year student volunteer and first year organizer.
So unfortunately not present with us today are Lola Garneau and Stella Peterson, our 2 other student organizers. And okay. So first, the most important part is, what is rewilding? Rewilding is focused on conserving, protecting, and restoring our environment. Our process is a conservation process aimed at restoring and protecting our natural resources and reestablishing the ecosystems that we have previously lost. And what we want to do is make it so that these ecosystems are strong enough so that we can help them regrow with minimal human intervention. So why is rewilding so important in our communities? Something that we really suffer with on Long Island is food insecurity. Currently, 250,000 Long Islanders struggle with food insecurity, and many of us here are very lucky to not have to worry about what food we're going to be putting on the table the next day, but this is a very severe issue. And our next reason for why rewilding is so important is climate change. So we have beautiful oceans that we want to conserve, and unfortunately, Long Island has higher than normal average asthma rates, and this is often linked to climate change. So Rewild helps mitigate this through composting and nourishing the soil and growing new plants. And also, we partner with the South Fork Sea Farm to help the oyster population, as they are natural water filters. Finally, the loss of biodiversity on our island is a huge issue we are facing today. Eutrophication and nitrogen overload from the runoff goes into our oceans, and this kills all the plants in the ocean. Also, according to a Yale Environment magazine, 50% of all US and European green spaces are residential yards, which are those big and beautiful green grass yards that we so often see. So Rewild helps mitigate this by supporting the growth and sale of natural plants, which can also be very beautiful. So the overview of the program, it's a very hands-on program that is accessible to high school students that really want to immerse themselves in environmentalism. We focus on learning by doing and really just getting our hands dirty with our local communities and making an environment so that we can all enjoy. One of our major projects from 2023 was our partnership with the Share the Harvest. In this, we grew hundreds of pounds of organic fruits and veggies for our local food pantries. This is really important because when many of us think of food pantries, we think of donating canned goods, but it's really important that these people have access to fresh grown organic fruits and veggies. So our second major project was the compost initiative in partnership with the East Hampton town. This is where we hosted food scrap drop-offs in Sag Harbor and at the Ashwag Hall Fair. Ashwag Hall Fair. And in this, we made it a very accessible activity for the average Long Islander, because many of us think that composting is something we have to go out of our way to do, but this makes it easy so that it can be an everyday activity, just like going to the dump. And something that I was personally very involved in was the garden design project. This was a weekly Zoom meeting where we learned about landscaping, specifically with natural plants. And we chose a spot in the East Hampton High School in which we organized a very aesthetically pleasing and also native garden. And we presented this to the Rewild board and the Port Washington chapter of the Rewild. So we also had another pollinator garden in the East Hampton High School, which was donated by the Rewild program. In this, we helped maintain the pollinator garden with Mr. Franzo, the teacher who overlooks the garden club. And this was every Wednesday. For 2 hours, we would go and help pull weeds and pick the flowers and any ripe fruits and veggies. That was my favorite part because sometimes she would let us take the veggies home, and it was very good. So finally was the Third House Nature Center. In this, we observed and we admired many of the native species with the help of Vicky Bustamante, who is one of the top naturalists on Long Island. And in this, we took hikes and observed Mother Nature, and we learned many species roles and contributions to the ecosystem. And we also learned about the invasive species that are taking over and what we can do to help mitigate that issue.
So I'm not really sure what's going on with the formatting, but this year our students are predicted to spend a grand total of 926 hours volunteering together. That's nearly 3 times the total hours last year. Additionally, we've grown from 9 student participants to 21 and now include students from 5 different high schools, up from only 2. So we've grown so much in the past year. It's so amazing to see how many more students are giving back to their community and really getting involved in Rewild. Here you can see an average work week. We provide a multitude of different opportunities, so even those with difficult to manage and predict working hours can participate. Additionally, the topics and activities covered at each event are constantly evolving, so there is never a dull moment. This is a pretty constant schedule. We have the same different partners every week, but we always are doing new things. So even if you want to go to 2 of the same event, 2 weeks in a row, you're going to have a new experience, which is really great. We have partnered with numerous different organizations this summer, as Stella previously mentioned, in order to provide students with a unique experience. These include the pollinator and vegetable gardens at East Hampton High School, Longhouse Reserve, Compost in Sag Harbor, Springs, and at Amber Waves Farm, Share the Harvest, South Fork Sea Farmers, and Bioswales on behalf of the Surfrider organization. The first specific program I'd like to delve into is our work with the South Fork Sea Farmers. Here, students are able to get a very hands-on experience through the construction of oyster reefs throughout the Springs area. Additionally, students can observe the work done at the East Hampton Town Shellfish Hatchery. I was just here last week. I took these great photos. I feel like this is a really meaningful opportunity, and I know just a few months ago, the people from the South Fork Sea Farmers were here at the town board to ask for a new reef to be built. And so to see that progress has just been a really great opportunity. Through Amber Waves Farm, students are able to staff a weekly compost drop-off, as well as encourage those not involved to join and begin dropping off their food scraps. This program is also in conjunction with composting drop-off tables at both Springs and Sag Harbor Farmers Markets. The Amber Waves program is really amazing because there's such an influx of Amber Waves members that come in and don't even understand how great of an impact the donation of food scraps can be in the community. So another program that I particularly enjoy are the bioswales on behalf of the Surfrider organization, in which students are able to pull weeds from the ground surrounding and within the bioswale to ensure that the bioswale is able to continue functioning normally. These bioswales, located on Methodist Lane as well as the Village Green, have weekly meeting times. And as you can see, everyone gets really involved, and we learn a lot, and what plants are native, which ones should be taken out, which ones you can leave, but maybe aren't great. It's very good. So our final program in partnership is through the Longhouse Reserve. Just in the past few weeks, our very own student volunteers and interns have worked tirelessly alongside Longhouse's crew to develop a brand new woodland garden. This woodland garden will be home to uncommon pollinators, especially those not present at the East Hampton High School pollinator garden, which gives our students a great range of different plants and pollinators to learn about and become familiar with. Thank you so much for your time. We are so excited to bring the wonderful contents of our summer program to East Hampton Town to show the true difference we are making across our beautiful local ecosystem. Thank you so much.
Sophie and Stella, could you stay at the podium for a minute and let me just see if my colleagues have questions for you or comments?
I just want to thank you for your leadership and hope that you'll continue to raise your voices and show us what can be done. And the entire community. It's essential. It's your future, and I'm glad you're participating in shaping it.
Thank you very much.
I'd just like to follow with the one question, which is, what inspired you to get involved in this?
So, do you want to go first or should I go first?
I mean, personally, I've always been really aware of our environmental issues, and I just really wanted to help make a change, but the environmental club only runs through the school year, and I wanted something to immerse myself during the summer. And yeah, I mean, I know I don't want to grow up in a world that I can't see like the beautiful trees and the ocean and stuff. So I think it's really important that if we want to make a change, we get ourselves in it and we help ourselves, because I think if we wait for someone else to make a change, then it won't happen. So. Yeah.
And then for me personally, I grew up in New York City, and so I moved here during the pandemic. I'd never really had a direct experience with the environment, and I never really gotten the chance to see how pollinators can be super helpful for local ecosystems. So after I moved here, I was really looking for opportunities to give back, because compost, it doesn't seem like it could be great, but it really is. And there's this funny line I said to Gloria last year. I opened up this person's canister and it was filled with maggots and lots of nasty looking things. But I said, I've been scarred. But to be honest, I started a composting program at East Hampton High School because I was so inspired by what we do here. So I really feel like if you have any sort of connection with the natural environment at all, try out Rewild, because you're going to learn so much about the world and yourself, and it really gives you a chance to grow. So.
Thank you.
I can't follow that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just reiterate what other board members have said. Thank you. Thank you very much for your work and enthusiasm and a very professional presentation. So you should be proud.
And the fact that, you're tackling food insecurity. I think what folks don't realize is that East Hampton town has the highest rate of poverty in Suffolk County. Because folks think of us as, McMansions and, the beautiful people, but there are hardworking folks that are really struggling, and to bring them fresh fruit and vegetables, it's just a beautiful thing. And you ladies are the change makers and your whole team. And, hats off to, the adults that are, Gloria, Len, and I'm sorry, I don't know. Nancy, for the work that you're doing. And like I said, you probably have the best job in the world working with these young people. So thank you for coming in, and you're invited back anytime.
Thank you so much.
Give us an update. Okay, you folks you don't need to stay. If you need to get back, feel free if you want to, scoot out now. Next up, we have Lori Wilshire, who's going to be making a presentation on a zone change request for 3 Mile Harbor Road.
Hi, Lori Wiltshire for Land Planning Services, representing Mike Ruddy, Ruddy and Sons. Mike Ruddy's my client, and Ruddy and Sons Masonry is his company. We've had an application pending with the Planning Board since 2019, and zone change petitions pending with the Town Board since 2021. In 2021, the Planning Board endorsed the zone change applications, which would provide privately constructed workforce housing for Mr. Ruddy's business. We are hoping this Town Board will act on this and hold a public hearing in the near future. If the Town Board approves the zone change petitions, let me go over to here just to explain. So, part of this is a lot line modification, which the Planning Board has approved but not signed a resolution yet, because all of this has to happen in order for this to take place. So there's 8,000 square feet of property right here. Mr. Ruddy owns this lot and this lot. And right in the middle is 8,000 square feet of property, which is going to be transferred from this housing lot to his business lot, because he needs additional storage for his masonry supplies out of view from 3 Mile Harbor Road. So this would be a good area for it behind his building. So that will take this lot down to about 40,000 square feet in size. Now, let me finish that part. So the part of the zone change petition would be to change the zone of this portion of this transferred property to CI, to match his business property, so it can be utilized as part of his business. Okay?
You want to pull up just the mic there, Lori, so that we make sure that they're getting you. We hear you in the room, but I'm not sure I want to make sure they're hearing you on LTV.
Okay.
We can hear you.
All right, so the second part
if you project enough.
great. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the second part of this is this is a residence zoning. It's zoned for one house. We're asking to put an affordable housing overlay district on this so that Mr. Ruddy can develop a manor style house with a couple of apartments for his foreman. He's had a very difficult time keeping key employees because of the commute. He's very well trained, articulate, and very useful in the field foremen get picked off by people up island, and that makes it very difficult to run a business out here. So he's planning a manor-sized house with 2 to 4 apartments in it. That would require the housing office to transfer density to the property. It also would require that we add an affordable housing overlay district to this residential lot. It would also require that we change the town code to reduce the minimum lot size for an affordable housing overlay district lot to 40,000 square feet, which is 1 acre, as opposed to 120,000 square feet, which is 3 acres. It seems to me that any opportunity to get some affordable housing, especially if it's going to be taken care of by a business owner and not by the town. It seems to me that it's any opportunity to get some sort of workforce housing in this town is tantamount to reducing our traffic congestion, the number of cars on the roads. In this instance, the foremen live and park at this manor house. They walk around the corner, they get in their truck, and they go to the job site. They don't have to drive. So that's 4 cars at least. They probably all have a wife. 8 cars that are not getting onto the road, perhaps. This is also on public transit, public water, and walkable to town. So it's an ideal location for an affordable housing lot and a manor house. If you have questions for me, please let me know.
Lori, I do have a couple.
Yes.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to put the AHO on both properties to make the variance criteria less? No, if not a variance criteria or
I don't know if you can put an AHO on a CI lot, but if you could, then why not? Because it's always possible that he could go up on the building to put apartments above it.
it would decrease what the minimum lot area would be needed. So if you looked at it as a variance, you would decrease what the variance need would be. It's not a variance. You're looking for a zone change. You can also go get a variance if you needed to for this, can't you?
Well, let me put it this way. We've been at this since 2019, and we had
I understand that, and I'm not saying I don't support this. I'm just going through the different criteria.
Well, the zoning board, it takes at least 18 months. So I would much prefer to go this route. We have to change, in order to merge the lot, we have to change the zone to CI of 8,000 square feet of property. Mm-hmm. Very unusual. It's not going to start a precedent in any way because we're creating two completely conforming lots. Where it's just annexing a single piece of property. And with the zoning board, what would we apply to the zoning board for?
I'm wondering if there would be a variance potentially from that section of the code that would
for
be
the lot size,
for the lot size of an HO.
Yeah. I think it could be beneficial all over town. These manor houses are not obtrusive. They can be plunked down right in a residential neighborhood and look just like every other house in the residential neighborhood, except they're going to have a few families living in them or a few couples living in them.
My last one, I'm so sorry, just to make sure you picked up, because I have it in front of me. I'm in the East Hampton, and during the Hamlet studies in the East Hampton, the portion of the Hamlet study actually, it was looked at putting an AHO over this entire area from Indian Hill, I believe, to, Mirror Lane Terrace to Indian Hill. There's about 30 lots that were in there. I would almost be interested in moving forward with that also, but potentially even picking up from Indian Hill to potentially Oakview Lane. It doesn't mean that people have to do it or use it.
Correct.
It allows for it's been looked at, it's in the comp plan now for a portion of that, but there's a lot of large lots. If you look at the subdivision or how this area was formed on the north side of Three Mile Harbor over the years they're very weird lots. Look at them right now.
Yeah, the shapes are very odd.
The shapes of them, and then you get the development of the Miller Lane areas then too. But they're long. Some of them are non-conforming. Excuse me. I don't want to say non-conforming. Some of them are just weird. So they're not exactly how you would want a property to be developed in shape and size currently right now.
Correct.
And that's just how they developed over generations.
Mm-hmm.
I would be interested in looking at that. Either way this is something that I look favorably on, but I want just to get your viewpoint on those also and for discussion with the board too.
I think the more affordable housing overlay zones you can place gives more opportunity for more workforce housing that we desperately need.
Can I turn that around and say, is there a negative of doing it?
Yeah, I have some questions about that from our attorney, actually, and Rob. So what we're looking at, Lori, is not just, and that would be a zoning board matter to have a variance from the code as it stands now for a single property, right? That's what the zoning board would do. What you're looking for is a zone code change on the minimum lot size for all affordable housing overlays across the town.
It would enable you to add a lot more.
Yes, so I just have some questions for Rob.
Local law. You have to change the local law.
So that would also entail a state a review, a secret review, right? We couldn't just do that without having a full secret process on this as well. So I just want to lay that out as a timeline situation. This is not, because you're not asking for a single relief, you're asking, in fact, for the whole town code to be changed. So to support this one property, it would also entail a secret review on our part.
Or perhaps, as David said, you consider changing the minimum lot size for a certain area as defined, which is also possible.
Rob, are we able to do this on a singular property? Wouldn't that be spot zoning?
No, not on a singular property, an area. As David was explaining, an area that could have an AHO added to it.
Oh, it would be an AHO that would be over the 3 acres, and it'd be an aggregate of the lot areas for multiple properties on there. So you're more looking like in a district phase instead of single and separate locations.
So it would be looking more to institute over these particular properties a particular zoning district that would lower the minimum lot size, correct?
No.
But can I just ask Rob?
That's what it sounds like. It's being suggested.
Not necessarily. If you put an AHO over a grouping of properties on there, it will allow for them to actually either have multiple density on them, on a property. They probably would have to upgrade their septic systems on there. Many of the properties in there, I believe half of the properties, this came out during the Hamlet studies, half of the properties that were on Indian Hill and on Merrill Lane Terrace are already pre-existing non-conforming conditions of multiple densities, and you can pull that by pulling the property history cards on there. So what you would be able to do is be able to bring them into the affordable housing allowances as far as the fees that could be charged for rent on there then too. So you're actually increasing the amount of properties that could potentially have, or amount of units that you would have in your affordable housing coffers, if you wanted to say that. But by doing as a whole, that would have a greater aggregate than what the code states. It'd be, you're putting an overlay district on a larger amount of properties. Now, it doesn't mean that each property owner will do anything, but if they did, they still would have to go through the same process of planning, site plan, maybe even zoning, depending on the lot sizes.
So my question still is, if then are the other side of that coin, David, is they're still looking for a code change for affordable housing overlay districts for the minimum lot size to be 1 acre from 3 acres?
That's correct.
Okay.
But like we just said, it could be for a specific area where it's appropriate, which is what David's suggesting in this neighborhood.
Rob, do you have an opinion on that?
You're talking about different parts of the town would have different requirements for the lot size?
You could change the code to have a defined area where the minimum lot size for AHO is 1 acre, where in other areas we've got much larger lots, it could remain 3 acres.
I don't think that'd be much easier to do. I think we still need to do the whole.
Yeah, the issue. Sorry.
The whole, secret analysis.
Secret.
And,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, per property, you need a code change. And Kate's point is that if you do a code change, we need to go through SECRA. And so that solution, I don't think saves any time.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. Because of the SECRA obligations, since we're doing it for the whole town, it would also extend the process from us just having a discussion here, however we feel about it, go to public hearing. We would need to do the full SECRA process on that because it's for the whole town.
Understood.
I just wanted to point that out.
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Just to change direction slightly here, and just for clarification points, you talk about a manor house with surrounding apartments. That can mean different things to different people. So could you just give some...
Not surrounding apartments.
Right.
So there's one that was developed on Acabonic Road. Amado Ortiz designed it. They look like moderate-sized McMansions. But when you look at the building, it looks like a house. But there's actually several entrances and several different dwelling units in that manor house.
Got you.
Yeah.
It would look like one principal structure.
Correct.
With multiple densities within that structure.
And that's what this would be. One dwelling unit with multiple units in it.
And that was a town project and if they're condominiums.
So my question is, if there was an affordable housing overlay put on to amount of property that would be equal, let's say hypothetically 10 acres over 10 different properties, we wouldn't need to change the town code to decrease the amount of lot area for an AHO. You would need to actually change the code to allow for an AHO on the 10 acres or the 10 pieces of property. So it wouldn't be something that would be looked at townwide. It'd be more specific into an area that might be appropriate, as was already designated in the Hamlet studies.
Correct.
And this area is outside of where that designated area was, but there could be enough of a nexus made to that if decided on.
So would that cure this issue, that it still doesn't meet the minimum of 3 acres? If you did it on 10 acres, you would still, I would ask the town attorney to let us know if that would cure Lori's situation, or if that'd have to be a minimum of 3 acres within that 10 acre zone that would have to have affordable housing on it, if something was to be constructed. I'm not sure that cures the issue for Lori.
I'll have to research that.
I would agree with that, Rob. Case correct. If we can look into that, that'd be helpful also. Because that means even with the AHO that's been contemplated in the Hamlet studies, you couldn't do it in that location. And we should have taken that out of the Hamlet study.
So this sparks, a broader conversation that Ian and I have been having with Eric Shantz about, affordable housing and our code, and that there are basically 3 levers that decide, where we can build affordable housing and how many units we can do, right? So it's the minimum lot size, which is what we're talking about. Right now, it's 3 acres. There's the number of units per acre. We're looking to move forward with 12 units per acre for senior housing, and it's still 8 units per acre for other affordable housing projects. And then there's the number of units per project, right? The maximum you can do is 60 units. And, we may want to have a broader discussion on that as well, because if you've got 5 acres or you've got 12 acres, should that number still be 60? And we've been talking, it looks like at the July 16th meeting, I know we have the zoning code amendments group coming then, but so we pack a lunch because we may have a long meeting on July 16th, is that maybe we want to have a broader discussion about affordable housing and how it is, a goal of this administration and our community to provide more affordable housing opportunities. Those are the levers that would need to be tweaked in order to provide more affordable, let's just say, apartments or condominiums, however we want to, design that.
Yeah, I think it's a timely discussion. I'm glad it's coming up, even though it'll be a lunch, pack your lunch and wear your pajamas meeting. I think it's timely and we should have it, particularly with folks coming up with requests.
Sorry, going back to this specific location, I think some of the merits that the applicant has put out there is that it is, first of all, it's walkable to the city centers, if you want to say. It's walkable to mass transit. It's walkable to schooling, if you wanted to. And it's on a thoroughfare that already has its infrastructure in place as far as sidewalks and such. So to me, I supported this as a resident in the Hamlet studies. I remember exactly who brought it up in the Hamlet studies for these locations, meaning in that area, North Main Street. That area, I think, is appropriate. We'll continue to look into it. But again, I think this area is appropriate also, but there's some nuances we'll have to still figure out here.
I appreciate that. Did you say July 16th work session?
I'm sorry, Ian, after you. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I agree with Kathy. I think a broader conversation makes sense. And I agree with Dave, frankly, too. I think that this location, it does make sense in a lot of ways, but we have to look at it at townwide. And so what you are asking for, and I'm 99% sure that because of the subject parcel is going to be substandard, there needs to be a code change regardless. I have obviously deferred to Rob's research on that, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be true.
Understood.
I will say that it's a fairly big ask here. You want to turn residential property into commercial and then increase density on, for affordable housing. So I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I do think we've got to frame the conversation in. It's a pretty big ask for this property owner. getting quite a bit of benefit. Of course, affordable housing has a benefit to the community as a whole. So I could be supportive if the broader conversation about affordable housing leads to a reduced size, which I think is a very big, we had a caller today already comment on it before this is really in the public domain. Dave brings up all sorts of good points about this location being different than others. I know Eric Shantz has a lot of ideas about areas like this that are close to, centers. So I look forward to that broader conversation. And if I'm being honest with you, I think there might be a little more time for you to wait unless you pursue the variance option, which may be your best idea at this point because it wouldn't depend on us making any code changes.
Yeah.
It wouldn't preclude, you from pursuing this should we move forward and you withdraw the application. But 18 months is, the clock starts when it starts. So
yeah,
if, you started in 2019, it would have been.
Yeah. And this was all Mike's idea. I didn't come up with this, and he arranged it the way that it would work for his business and for his employees.
And it's commendable to actually have private property owners trying, because even when this is not, he might not be operating a business out of here, it still would be affordable housing. And too,
Absolutely,
so
in
it's commendable to
perpetuity.
actually have property owners that see the need out here, but also do it in a way that they, instead of just working with them what the code is and having a certain amount of unrelated people in homes out there, that there's a long-term look at affordability and affordable housing from a property, putting the funding up to do so. It's commendable to do that. There's just a process in doing so.
Absolutely. And we understand that. We appreciate your time and your attention to the matter, and I look forward to hearing your discussion on the 16th.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Lori. Okay, so next up, we have the Wayne-Scott Hamlet Plan Implementation Phase 1. This is what everybody here is waiting to, hear the presentation. Zach, if you could let Lisa, Vin, and Peter Flinker into the Zoom. Patrick, if you could take that down.
Yes, 1 second.
Thanks, Zach.
My question is, has the PowerPoint been uploaded?
No, we don't see it, Lisa.
Okay, I'm asking for assistance to do that. I don't know how to do that.
Or I could share it from my screen.
Okay, good. Don't see it, Lisa. Okay, I'm for assistance to do that. I don't know how to do that.
Just feedback.
We should just test the mics because there was just a little bit of feedback. Lisa, could we just hear from you again, just so we can?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, good.
Vin, can we hear you? Can we just test? I don't hear Vin.
Yeah, I don't think he's tested yet.
Somebody, I think, is watching the feed.
Yes. Yeah, I'm on. I can hear. I think I might be on twice. No, I'm not. Okay.
We got you. Peter, can we hear you?
Yes, I'm here and I can hear you.
Beautiful. Okay, and everybody has it off in their background, right? That it's off on the presentation. You're not streaming it. Just confirming. Okay, so why don't you folks introduce yourselves? Although I think most in the community know you, but we could start there and then let's get into it.
Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Supervisor, members of the Town Board. For the record, my name is Lisa LaCourie, Fine Arts and Sciences, and I'm here with Peter Flinker of Dotson and Flinker and Vin Corrado of L.K. McLean Associates. And Peter's going to start off by explaining what the Wayne-Scott Hamlet Plan Implementation Phase 1 mouthful project is, how it relates to the comprehensive plan and the Wayne-Scott Hamlet Plan, what the process was to develop this plan and report. And then he's going to start talking about some of the recommendation strategies for developing a streetscape plan and municipal parking. Then Vin is going to pick it up from there, and he's going to talk about the options for evaluating sewage treatment and also other options for Montauk Highway improvements. And I'll wrap it up with zoning, land use, and other incentives. So over to you, Peter, if you can share your screen.
Great, we see it.
You see my screen? Very good. So yes, it's great to be with you all again and bringing this project forward. What we're here to do is talk about the action strategy. We want to make sure this is not changing the previous report, but it's really trying to take action to create concrete strategies to move forward. It doesn't replace the Wayne Scott Hamlet plan, but it really focuses on what can we do first to move forward with that, the recommendations of that plan. So it focuses on the Montauk Highway, central business and commercial industrial zoning districts, basically between Westgate Road and Hedges Lane, but it looks into the larger planning context as well. And it's a community-driven approach, which is built on sort of intentionally on shared values that were brought forth through a public process that we went through in 2022. So the plan is based on the 2019 adopted Wayne Scott Hamlet plan. This was a sort of a master plan drawing that we did to summarize the recommendations of the plan. And as we always say, this is not the plan that's going to get built, but it's really aspirational vision for reconnecting roads, improving circulation for cars and particularly for pedestrians, to separate pedestrians and cars as much as possible, and to provide room, as shown with all of those brown buildings, for expanded economic activity that can really meet the needs of Wayne Scott for the next decades. But we know that that aspirational plan is not going to happen very quickly, and we really needed to figure out what can we do now, what our priorities should be, and for that purpose, we worked with the town to assemble a working group made up of stakeholders from the community, residents, property owners, business owners. This changed and evolved somewhat over time, but the goal, and I think which was met, was to involve people from each of the different interests that are affected by the plan. And through that process, we went through a series of meetings over the winter and spring of 2022, and really looked in detail at the recommendations of the Hamlet plan. We evaluated the different alternatives and ideas, added some new ideas, and set some priorities for action. And that also included setting aside some of the concepts for future study. So the implementation roadmap that results really is answering the question of what's the best planning tools for implementing the community vision, who should be responsible, what are the priorities for investments, and generally how much will that cost. The resulting sort of implementation strategy is divided into 4 categories: municipal improvements, improvements to Montauk Highway, regulatory changes and incentives, and then options for reuse of the former sandpit area. So as Lisa said, I'm going to sort of start off talking about some of those improvements, and then Vin and Lisa will wrap it up. So the municipal improvements included design and development of a streetscape plan, looking at municipal parking, and evaluating advanced sewage treatment that could sort of enable a lot of that redevelopment that the vision described. The streetscape plan is sort of itself divided into a number of different strategies. One important one was to bury the utilities. Another one is to install continuous accessible sidewalks, to improve pedestrian amenities, among them planting trees and creating buffers of plantings that really make it more comfortable to walk and circulate around the district. And then to look at management and maintenance strategies so that the investment is taken care of over time. Burying the power lines, this was a simulation on the left showing Obviously, what happens if you take the power lines out? It's an improvement because you're not looking at power lines. And also, it allows you to do other things like planting trees. It also reduces storm vulnerability, improves safety, and increases the opportunities, again, for landscaping. The considerations include expense, which is calculated at least 1.75 million, and then some additional expense for business owners to hook up individual buildings. So what we discovered is, I think something like half of the buildings already have buried utilities out to the poles along the streets. So it wouldn't be everybody starting from scratch. And also it can be incorporated in redevelopment over time as new uses or change uses come in. And it can also incorporate conduits to provide for future decorative lighting or decorative lighting that might be installed as part of the streetscape plan. Sidewalks are an important part of the implementation strategy. Only about half the length of the business area has sidewalks. A lot of them are not ADA compliant or in poor condition. We discovered that the right-of-way is variable, and in all locations it's not sufficiently large, or it's shifted to one side of the road, which doesn't allow easy public redevelopment of the streetscape. So that's a consideration. And also, I think in terms of the larger context, there's a lot of opportunities for connecting the pedestrian linkages to the surrounding streets and open spaces. And that also is something that can be brought into this process. And all of that is going to require a lot of collaboration with landowners, the town, and the New York DOT, starting with a more detailed survey plan to figure out where everything is and who owns what. Street trees and landscaping, again, really important opportunity for redeveloping the sort of physical structure and making it more attractive for pedestrians and vehicles, and really creating more of an identity for this section of Wainscott. Simulation of after you remove the wires allows a lot of opportunities for creating trees. And then there's other choices in terms of the tree species and where they go. And even if wires continue to be in that location, there are trees that can be planted among them if it's done carefully. One of the things we talked about with the working group is the sort of a character and the look of this section of Wainscott. And I think the feedback we got pretty strongly, we don't want to make this another downtown village center with a lot of hard surfaces. We want it to express the beachy landscape of Wainscott, a lot of native species, a lot of soft spaces where there's opportunities to do that, and to use native plants and a sense of being part of the sort of Wainscott environment and not trying to turn it into something else. So this extends to other pedestrian amenities, the surfacing of the walkways, seating choices for benches and so on, how the planting areas are treated, even things like recycling. Lighting, of course, can be done in a way which sort of fits into that kind of environment, not necessarily a downtown environment. And then signage. I think something that's still needs to be developed in further detail is, what's the brand of this section of Wainscott? Who are we trying to attract? I think there was some feeling among the working group that maybe we don't want this to be a huge commercial district that's attracting people from all over, but something that really feels like it's a local village center, not something that's for all of Long Island. And then in terms of the maintenance and management ideas, we need to clarify the sort of level of commitment, who's available to maintain this, how much money going forward is available to do that maintenance, because that, of course, is an important part of deciding what it is you want to install, because there are ways of making it easier to maintain. And then part of that also is to clearly demarcate public areas from areas that don't serve the public, sort of make a clear division as it's being redeveloped between the public and the private spaces, to create screening and separations where that's appropriate. And that's all part of making this a more useful village center, of course. Cost estimates, I won't go through all of these in a great deal of detail. We talked about the power lines as being one of the biggest parts of it, installation of sidewalks and ramps sort of following at $650,000. The $125,000 for street trees and landscaping is flexible. Trees now are anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000 a piece installed, so that can provide for more or fewer trees as available. But the total we figured was about $2.5 to $3 million. One of the recommendations was to look at creating municipal parking in an area which right now is primarily individual parking lots that, like commercial strips everywhere, are not very efficiently laid out, because if you have separate designed and managed parking lots with multiple curb cuts and barriers between them, there's a lot of leftover space that's not really serving any purpose. So part of the original sort of concept plan, part of which is shown here, was to show how you could reconnect the parking lots across lot lines and really treat it as one shared space. And then the next step to be considered is, well, if it's shared space, can it be something which is owned and maintained by the town rather than individual landowners, which could provide for a higher level of treatment for everything. So one of the locations we looked at was kind of in the western end of the district, consolidating the area from Home Goods to Wainscott Northwest Road. Another one was to look at, as part of potential redevelopment of the sand pit, a large municipal lot on the east side. So this is that western side, sort of centered on Wainscott Northwest Road. And just this photograph illustrates how there's a lot of parking, but there's also a lot of space which is not being used effectively, either as sort of open space or as parking. Some of it's storage, some of it's sort of leftover landscape areas, but there's really a great opportunity for consolidating this. And here's a plan which shows some of those multiple parking lots. And then this is a sketch which we did a few years ago to sort of show how many spaces you could get in there if you consolidate everything. About 200 spaces is shown in this plan, which would be 70 more than what's there now. And that's including, as you see here, the green islands planted with green trees, pedestrian connections, a larger sort of consolidated pedestrian district around the corner, and then areas for existing buildings to expand, which was part of the original concept. So this parking, would be rethought as part of this plan moving forward. It could be, this is again kind of a concept. It could include more landscaping or less landscaping, few more parking spaces or not. One of the key things we heard is that several of these large parking areas are obviously are required as part of the original zoning approvals for some of the adjacent businesses. And as part of that process, that all is going to have to be thought through, as well as the existing uses. A lot of these are used for parking and storage of the businesses, and they need that space. So there's some issues that need to be worked through, but this has been done in a lot of towns all over the Northeast, and sort of the benefits are clear. And then this is, again, a little bit further out there, an idea for, as part of whatever the redevelopment of the sand pit is, even if it's just open space, there's an opportunity to create sort of a consolidated lot, which again provides the parking that allows the pedestrian areas to be redeveloped closer to Montauk Highway, filled in with buildings and open space and places for people to be while consolidating the parking. The cost for all of this involves a planning. $75,000 for schematic master planning, a more detailed planning for another $400,000. And then beyond that would be the land acquisition and installation costs. So getting started, about $500,000. I'm going to turn it over to Vin now to talk about sewage treatment. And Vin, you can just tell me when to advance the slides.
Okay, thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, well, with respect to advancing the concept of sewage treatment that was developed in the plan, you can see the goals and objectives that were developed in the Hamlet plan. Sewage treatment is one of the impediments to downtown to downtown growth on Long Island, because not just an environmental issue. It also, you have Suffolk County health issues, and it kind of inhibits the amount of development that you can have in a commercial area if you don't have sewage treatment. The more successful downtowns on Long Island tend to have sewage treatment and municipal parking, which alleviates a lot of the burden on the individual property owners, especially when you have small lot sizes, as is pretty common in on Long Island in downtown areas. So we looked into conducting a high-level feasibility. This is really a conceptual feasibility study for sewage treatment. I think in the original plan, the cost estimate was somewhat lower than this, but I reached out to one of the sister firms that we do sewage treatment, sewage design work with, and they gave me somewhat of an insight and an updated on this cost. At the lower end of this cost range would be pretty much a superficial initial analysis of a couple of build-out scenarios for sanitary flow and a kind of broad sizing of a sewage treatment plant, and maybe some siting investigations and locations for sewer mains and pump stations. At the higher end of that, this could be developed into an engineering design report that would be useful in advancing and obtaining funding for the actual build out of this. So you can see the cost range for $25,000 to $35,000. It would also have the benefit of reducing the nutrient load in Georgica Pond, which I know is a significant issue. Some of the issues that would be really need to be looked into is the fact that there is very high groundwater and the areas in the FEMA flood zone. So siting of the treatment plant would be something that needed to be looked at early in the process. So you could go to the next slide, Peter. Thanks. The Montauk Highway improvements. The stuff on Montauk Highway is kind of some rudimentary things, simple things like reducing the speed limit from 40 to 30 miles an hour, like it is in other business areas. Recently, New York State actually has allowed speed limit reductions to 25 miles an hour on their roadways. Some of the hamlets on Long Island are already reducing speed limits to 25. To get it reduced on Montauk Highway would require action by New York State DOT because it's their roadway. That's basically free and a pretty effective traffic calming strategy. And as is the reduction in lane width from 12 to 11 feet. There are 12-foot, actually slightly wider in some areas, travel lanes on Montauk Highway right now, and a pretty wide median or two-way left turn lane, which does allow for high speeds. This would be a pavement marking thing and would need to be coordinated with DOT. Pretty simple stuff. Do speed studies along Montauk Highway. Probably would be beneficial to include a crash analysis in that. And you can see the cost estimate for that for an outside traffic consultant would be in the single digits, thousands of dollars. You can go to the next slide. With respect to buses, I mean, the only bus route in this area is the S92. Right now, Suffolk Transit just recently introduced, they just completely revamped their bus plan on Long Island. They added 7-day-a-week, pretty much hourly headways in most of the system. They eliminated some feeder buses, and I'm pretty sure that the only feeder bus that existed in East Hampton was the 10A or the 10C, that it is going to be replaced with, as it has been in Southampton Town, with an on-demand bus service. We understood from during the master plan that our shelters are not favorably looked on, although they are very effective in making bus use more accessible to people that don't have their private vehicles. And I should say that if municipal parking is established, then the bus stops could be relocated into these municipal parking areas, and which would, at least in one direction, which would get them off the street and then maybe make bus shelters more desirable or less undesirable for the community. So, and I mean, that we can see there's the cost for this would be included in the streetscape plan. Right, you can go on.
Just to add one more thing to what Ben just presented, we wouldn't just be talking about Suffolk County buses, but also like the Jitney and the longer range buses, where those bus stops are and where they should be, and incorporating that into the streetscape plan. Okay, so from all the sketches that you've seen of the Wayne-Scott area, the aerial photographs included, see that most of the area is occupied by parking. And we have to ask ourselves, is that really what we want our downtown to be? There's a perception in Wayne-Scott that there are parking shortages. So in part of the plan, there are 2 municipal parking lots to help it. And also municipal parking lots help a downtown, have a feeling of cohesion and working together. But there may also be opportunities for shared parking here in Wayne-Scott, and quite frankly, throughout the town. All of the business areas could benefit from opportunities for shared parking. So we're recommending that the town provide incentives for new developments and redevelopments of existing uses to use shared parking, and that parking needs would be evaluated on a business district-wide coordinated approach, and then physical and regulatory arrangements to encourage shared parking could be developed. And keeping in mind that shared parking will only be helpful if it's within a reasonable walking distance to the intended use, and that decorative pavement, crosswalk, stop signs need to be integrated into the pedestrian walkways connecting the shared parking areas with the businesses. So one approach to this would be to sponsor a pilot program with a couple of business owners. But in any event, reaching out and working with the business owners would be essential for any sort of successful. The next slide, it shows the cost estimate. Oh, do we have a cost estimate? Oh, okay. Well, anyway, the cost estimate for that with outside consultants would be about $25,000, but it could be folded into the Wayne-Scott Overlay District, which I'm going to talk about in a couple of slides from now. Here's another thing, though, access management, which is the coordinated planning, design, and regulation of curb cuts and access points between public roadways and private properties. And there are ways to implement this through streetscape planning and street trees. So that could be an incentive for a business owner to coordinate with their adjoining properties. There could be zoning incentives that the town provides with density bonuses or coverage or parking reductions if they do shared parking and access, and therefore reducing the number of curb cuts. It report, both the Hamlet plan and this encourages investigation into extending Bathgate Road to the east to provide rear access to the businesses to the east. Right now, there's only a small segment of it. And then coordinating municipal parking lot and management can also help then with access management on each parcel. So again, this could be folded into any number of other things that we're talking to. It could be done in-house. It could be done with an outside consultant. We just gave some numbers. It's not a big ticket item, about $25,000 if it were to be a standalone project. Next slide. So the town is familiar with, and the town has many special areas that have been designated into overlay district. We have farmland overlay districts, water recharge overlay districts, harbor recharge overlay districts, flood zone overlay districts, quite a number of them, historic districts. So in order to foster a coordinated approach to development in Wayne-Scott, a Wayne-Scott business area overlay district could be formed. And the goals and objectives would be to provide clear architectural and siting standards for everybody developing in that area, foster preservation of desirable characteristics, encourage more efficient and economic arrangement of buildings, parking areas, circulation systems, and utilities, provide standards that foster predictable results aligned with Wainscott, provide standards to incentivize shared parking and access management, provide guidelines for facade grant program to encourage businesses to make improvements to the exterior of their buildings. And I'm going to talk more about that in another slide. So in order to do this, we would recommend that there be a working group to advise the board on the conceptual framework. And then again, you can either do this with the planning department and a working group with an outside consultant, or just all in-house to revise the conceptual master plan, develop a zoning map, a regulating plan, draft zoning bylaws, and design standards. So there's kind of a spectrum of to how much of this you may or may not want to do. So it was difficult to come up with cost estimates. But depending on how detailed the town wished to get, it could be about $175,000 outside consultant project. Next slide. Okay. Yep. Okay. So I mentioned briefly a facade improvement grant program. One of the things the working group members brought up was, you could have the best plan in the planet and the best zoning ordinance, but if individual business and lot owners don't want to do anything to their property, nothing happens. And that's virtually true. So the thought was to have a facade improvement grant project, provide financial incentives to encourage existing businesses to make visual improvements to the exterior of their buildings, whether or not they were proposing a redevelopment or a new development plan. So there'd be some considerations for this. Who would be in the district? We would recommend that all property owners in the Wainscott Business Overlay District or the Central Business District be eligible. You'd have to set up what the eligibility criteria would be. It identify the type of eligible improvements, whether it be signs, exterior paint, facade repair, facade cleaning, window or door replacement, or new entranceways. You may want to start encouraging people to take entrance from the back door in order to get to the new walkways or something along that line. Implementation could be done with the town attorney's office, the finance office, maybe with a consultant or in-house, it depends on how big a project it is, and work with the planning department and business owners to draft guidelines for recommended facade design and improvements. Again, depends on how much of it is done in-house, how much of it you farm out. We came up with an estimate of $75,000 for that. Next slide, please. Okay, so finally, on its own is the former sand pit property. So we are talking about the comprehensive plan in this, and as we will continue to, we're aware of the fact that there is a development application currently pending before the planning board, and that has its own time frame and life of its own. But we're still moving forward what the comprehensive plan says. And this illustration on the bottom of this slide shows what the comprehensive plan, the Wainscott Hamlet plan, which is now part of the comprehensive plan, depicts this sketch showing potential uses in these various different colors for the redevelopment of the sand pit. So what it is showing is that more than half the acreage should be protected for active park or conservation use. That's that big green area. And that the plan shows that the should be acquisition for municipal parking and for transportation. Those are those two white kind of rectangles, one at the north near the railroad tracks and one down by that blue dashed line showing a potential access. Then also to pursue the acquisition of about 8 to 10 acres of land for potential workforce housing, That's right next to that white municipal parking lot on the southern portion of the property. And then to develop incentives for the land and business owners to relocate existing heavy industry to the northern portion of the property. So that would be to the top of the page and to the right of the green. That's kind of a darker brown color, to have that be the area designated for heavy commercial industrial uses, and to encourage the existing heavy commercial to move into that area. Next slide, please. So road and access improvements to get here would be requiring safe, dedicated access from Montauk Highway to this property. There would need to be a new road created, developing more detailed circulation and road connectivity plan linking Old Montauk Highway and Bathgate Road. So this road plan that is shown in this sketch does not exist. Clearly, there's not that road coming in from Montauk Highway, nor the east-west, what we're calling the continuation of Bathgate Road. Within a portion of that east-west area is the Old Montauk Highway, which is not in that configuration at all. It goes somewhat of an angle, kind of cutting down to Montauk Highway and up to that what's shown as the east-west road. So what the comp plan shows would be a land swap, a trade or something to be able to get that Old Montauk Highway to be where we're showing it here in this plan, to be part of a service road, access road, similar to the way that Bathgate Road is configured and works for the more western portion of the hamlet. The plan also would require the property owner to make off-site improvements to Montauk Highway as needed to mitigate traffic impacts of proposed development. The original plan, the comp plan, shows a traffic roundabout here. We didn't get into the issue of traffic roundabouts for here and for the other intersection in this study. There needed to be additional study to do, and we put that aside for the future. Then in terms of access, we have recommended exploring the feasibility and requirements for a future railroad station at the north end of the site and determining the best mechanism for setting aside suitable areas. Next slide, please. So again, how would you get there from what you have right now? Well, you would rezone to commercial industrial, the land from commercial industrial, the land along Montauk Highway, to central business. So right now, there's CI land that comes down just about to the highway, and it's got a couple of lots in it. Not only part of the sand pit property, but some adjacent properties. So to be a part of a business area, we feel all of that should be zoned central business and remove the CI further north. Rezone the southern portion of it to, maybe if we go back one slide, Peter, that would help. One more slide. Thanks. So there's that, just to the, what looks like to the right of the green, there's some pink area. So the plan is to rezone that to commercial service to help take care of the very pronounced needs for commercial service workers and businesses that exist in the town. And then to the north of that is the area that would remain in the CI zone as it currently is. So that would be more heavy CI. So those would be the zoning things. Peter, if you could go back, let me see if there was something else. Okay. All right, commercial service zone. Okay, and then coordinate the types and locations of uses with planning for the airport industrial park and adjoining commercial, industrial, and institutional uses. Okay, so that is what this is how to implement what's in the comprehensive plan. We note that during the working group meetings, there were very many other recommendations for what should be done for this property, including total acquisition, development into an art park, development into other types of things. We mentioned that in the report, but what we're focusing on here in this PowerPoint is how to implement the comprehensive plan. And we have one more slide. Okay. Also, overdoing anything to the former sand pit property is site cleanup and restoration. There must be implementation of a restoration plan for the disturbed land, coordinated for Wainscott's needs for open space, and larger town goals for restoring the native ecology and protecting Georgia Pond, and then also ensuring the cleanup of any residual contamination and obviously protection to the highest standards of groundwater and surface watershed. There's opportunities to link the open space and establish buffers for the adjoining residential neighborhoods. That would be very important with the redevelopment of this property. You could provide substantial vegetative buffers to the adjacent neighborhood, provide open space connections allowing for movement of plants and animals across boundaries, link the sidewalks and paths and trail system to the Wainscott Business District, surrounding neighborhoods and trailheads to the East Hampton Sag Harbor neighborhood. And we haven't put a cost on doing any of this or identified the responsibilities, but there's multiple agencies from the town board and the planning board and working with the property owner. So that's the first run through of the PowerPoint. There's more details in the report, but that pretty much takes us through what we wanted to present.
Great. Thank you, Lisa, Peter, and Ben. Do board members have comments or want to start a discussion about today's presentation?
Yeah, I mean, I'll begin, Lisa. Thank you for and Vin and Peter for an excellent presentation. Wainscott's obviously the gateway to coming into the town of East Hampton, and it's the first thing that all our visitors, which is our primary economy base, see. So I think there's many aspects to this. I mean, we hear on a day-to-day basis from Wainscott residents as to the challenges they're facing with regards to traffic and other pieces. But as an overall CBD plan, conceptually, I do understand where you're getting to. I think one of the primary challenges that really needs to be overcome and engaged with is how to work with individual business owners such that they can align with this plan. So I think conceptually what we're looking to do here is the right thing. I think the implementation piece is going to need a lot of community work and outreach to get full alignment.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
So first of all, again, I'd like to acknowledge the work that former council member Sylvia Obi did on overseeing this implementation plan, and the committee that worked with her, being the residents of Wainscott, which also included business owners, if you take a look at that list. I support the priorities that are listed here. I think we can look at treescapes, the scapes and the improve that area with sidewalks and make it more walkable. And then I think that leads to enticement of the other improvements when you start with that kind of infrastructure improvement. I also appreciate and support the Wainscott Citizens Advisory Committee's recommendation that the South Fork win $5.5 million of the community benefits package. That portion of $5.5 million is dedicated to the Hamlet of Wainscott. And there was a subcommittee on the CAC that looked around and said, where can we get the most bang for the buck, or have this money benefit the most amount of residents, and I support their recommendation that it gets used in this area in conjunction with this implementation plan. I think that's a very wise decision, and I appreciate how the CAC came to that recommendation. And, we have our studies and our Hamlet plans, and the next step and the most important step is how do we get them implemented so that they're just not nice studies that sit on the shelf. So I support moving forward with this plan in coming up with a way and a priority that we can get going on implementation.
Yeah, I agree with what my previous colleagues have said. Tom especially, I think, hit on what I think about this, which is the Wayne Scott described in the implementation plan is very nice, but taking it from paper to reality is the challenge, of course. I think the streetscape work is sort of, I'm happy to hear that there's sort of funding that is potentially available and that the Wayne Scott community wants to dedicate to that. I think burying the power lines and improving pedestrian traffic and just beautification projects in the right-of-way would be very, very helpful. Of course, as it's highlighted in the report, there's not a lot of room. So it's a very broad brush report, and then figuring out how sidewalks will fit, where trees will go, and how it all actually works is going to be a lot of work. It's a tight space. As far as the changes to the roadway, frankly, I'm a little bit skeptical of reducing the lane width just from a safety standpoint. The speed limit makes sense to me. If Wayne Scott becomes more of a village as the other hamlets are, I understand why we'd want to have, the speed limits be analogous to, say, a downtown Amagansett. So I think that is the area to focus on, the beautification and the streetscapes. And it seems like with what the proposed or expected costs are, perhaps the money from the wind farm could fund all or most of that. The overlay district was a very interesting one to me, a Wayne Scott specific overlay district. I think we've got to be very careful at that to make sure that we're not layering sort of regulations on top of each other, and that we're very focused on, as simple as possible, specifically highlighting what we want to see there. And perhaps that could become a roadmap for other hamlets to sort of, appreciate the differences within our town of East Hampton and how, Amagansett is special, Springs is special, and Wayne Scott, all as part of the town of East Hampton, but maybe in unique ways. But before we get there, I'd want to make sure that there wasn't some sort of overarching, business center overlay district that would work for everything. So interesting idea, but I think as the consultants highlighted, this is an overview, and there's a lot more work to be done. The private property owners, I think, again, Tom hit on this. There's going to be a lot of outreach. The parking, the shared parking, I think, is a great idea. We just have to find a way to do that fairly. If one person's property happens to be the best place for a parking lot, we can't use the whole thing. So, how realistic it is to get to the point where we can implement that is going to involve a lot of back and forth with private property owners and business owners and the community as a whole. And I think that leads to the last item, which, some members of the public have already commented is one of the most important, is the sand pit. And that, that property is owned privately, and I think is the most obvious example of how we have a vision as a town, or the Wayne Scott might have a vision of what they want to happen, but as private property, we have to figure out a way to work together to achieve it. And there's certainly challenges because the town doesn't currently own that. So very, very supportive, and I'm happy to see the presentation, and I hope to work forward to see at least parts of it implemented. I think we've got to start someplace.
Okay, so I'm going to be a little bit more critical, maybe, if you don't mind, and maybe to get down to brass tacks a little bit. Long time coming. I'm happy to be here. Kate, thanks for picking this up and getting us here. One of the things in the report that I noticed that the subcommittee didn't really care about the speed as much on this road, about the flow. And the flow then brings me in not just the flow on the main road, but also in other ways. In other ways, I think that we have to, what's the low-hanging fruit? How do we initialize this? Where would I spend time and money to do so? And I think one of the first things is you have to outreach to the other municipalities that are in there, or other entities, being the MTA. and also New York State DOT. Are they on board with this also? Because so much of this is going to go into their right-of-way, or do they want to actually invest tens of millions of dollars into a potential another train station in that location that I believe originally was a little further to the west, but could make good sense on there. So that, I believe, is something that should be a high priority, because why put time, effort, and money behind something that they're not going to be on board with? So we should bring them into this discussion very shortly now that we're at this phase. Shared parking, I agree with Tom and Ian and others. They're saying it's going to be very difficult to get property owners to play in the sandbox together. But even more so, what does that do to the properties that are currently there? As mentioned, some of those properties go into larger developments of the properties that happened 30, 40 years ago, and into a matrix of parking per square footage of the use, whatever use it would be, retail, exercise, whatever's in the areas. And two, so are we now making those properties non-conforming on there? How would we work through that? Then two, insurance on it. Some property owners rather have a fence. Good fences make good neighbors. Might not want to share that. That's going to be at the long-term a discussion on there also. I think that there should be money spent in that. Also, how does that affect Suffolk County Health Department regulations as far as parking? Their parking regulations, their gray water regulations, their size on there then too. I don't know if this is a location, and I know it was a low priority in this report based on the subcommittees for wastewater. It should definitely be looked at further, but I don't know if a single property owner in that corridor has upgraded their septic systems. Am I correct on that, maybe? I can't think of a single business property owner that has voluntarily upgraded their septic system, and which goes into my Lazen report. We have until August 30th if you want funding to do so, part of the town's RFA funding. So I think we should also reach out to that entity, Suffolk County Health Department, and how that might affect with shared parking. I'd be nice to know a little bit more of that. That would be a priority of mine also. I think streetscape is low-hanging fruit and something that could be implemented very shortly. But streetscape is going to be in a right-of-way. That right-of-way doesn't belong to the town. So it goes back to my first one. If the state is interested in partnering with that, I think that funding is great. I mean, you're $150 a linear foot for sidewalks at $651,000 on the whole. That's about right. But those are the basic building blocks of infrastructure I think you need to in connectivity. I would be very supportive in doing that. But the linchpin of that is going to be lowering the power poles, connecting to cable, whatever other devices are going to be there. And I think you're light on those numbers, how much it's going to cost some of the property owners to hook up or to decrease based on what we've seen. Either way, I think it's a very wise investment, not just from the look and the long-term infrastructure look, but also just resiliency out here to storms. I remember going to a NOAA, I think you were there with me, to a NOAA presentation. A gentleman drove out and was at Gurney's and said, I just drove through a bird's nest of wires out here. You know, we're seeing it happen in other locations, but I would immediately support funding use there with the design. I'm a little hesitant on looking at code changes. I know we looked at that on the western side, code changes. I wasn't supportive of that. On the eastern side, if we do go from a CI to CB zoning, you're already looking intensifying, maybe not the actual use that can be done there, done on there as far as, but you're intensifying the nature of traffic. You're intensifying the nature of need for parking. If in CB, if you put in a restaurant, you're already drawing more people there, where this location has removed restaurant uses on there. So I think we have to look into that. But if that's something that the community wants to look into, I would say that more, but it wouldn't be my highest priority. There's many areas that I think that the town can move ahead in rapid succession on, but those three entities, MTA, Suffolk County Health Department, and the New York State DOT, I think that was where I would prioritize some of my questions if they're on board with this. If they are, then we can move forward on looking at costs for developing some of those short-term being streetscape, burying power lines. Greater things would be then also shared parking and then MTA, potential stops and needs. I think we have to look in this as something what can be done in 3 years, 5, 10, 25 years also. But some of this stuff is actual and will get done, and I look forward to helping as I can. Sorry to be a little bit more.
So, yeah, I don't really actually think that that's critical of the plan, because I think that's basically some of the elements of the plan that you're talking about, contact with the DOT that's in the plan. A lot of those recommendations for doing studies and to seeing how it further is also in the implementation plan. So I just don't find it that critical. I just find it.
I'll take the word away. I'm
appreciative that you're looking at the finer details on how to move these plans forward. And I also just want to say that, I own commercial property up west, and it was redeveloped. It was an arena, and it got redeveloped into a shopping center along with 3 adjacent large property owners. And shared parking happened in that, and in especially internal roads, if not shared parking, because there is a benefit to being able to park in one place and not have, if I want to go to the next store, I don't have to get out or walk around fencing. I know it works well in Amagansett and Montauk, where it's been for quite some time. So I still think it's something to look into.
Well, municipal parking.
Municipal parking, where everyone shares the parking for the stores. There's not the individual lots like you have right now in Wayne Scott. So, and again, this is a plan of what studies to conduct and how to find the answers to the fine details and move forward. So I again support the comments and the plan.
And if I could, go ahead.
I think shared parking is different than municipal parking. Shared parking is going to be using 2 private property owners sharing the parking on there.
Well, I think one of
the... I'll just finish. For nighttime and then also a daytime use. That was what was discussed the last time we had this discussion. So that's where the conflict's going to be. Municipal parking would mean that the town would have to buy fee title and develop.
Yes, I understand.
Develop that property. I think that's a lot easier to do so because that just takes money, not actually 2 individual property owners entities combining for the same goal on there then too. But I would hate to see this and this binder go up on a shelf and collect dust anymore. I think that's what's happened to many things within the township, and it's time to not just study things, it's time to implement things. And that's what I would like to see successfully get done here. And that's my priority listing to doing so. Some of them are a little bit easier than we think. I think we just need to go out and say, we're going to go do this.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That's where I'm at on it. And that's maybe if I'll take the word being critical away. I like to get stuff done. And I don't see some of the stuff in here, it's not too hard to get done if we just decide to go ahead and move on it.
Absolutely.
I would support that.
Great. So I was just going to say, as far as things that require the New York State DOT, now is the time to strike with Assemblyman Thiel still in office, because he has been really helpful with us with matters relating to the DOT, the work that's getting done on Stephen Hand's Path and Route 114. And I had mentioned in a liaison report a few months back, we had reached out to him, and the DOT is going to be fixing that chronic drainage issue between La Campanina and Home Goods by the end of the year, because that's dangerous. The water gets really deep there. In the winter, it freezes. But I looked to, as Carolyn said, the SAT approach, the low-hanging fruit. I'm confident that the Wayne-Scott CAC probably already has a Wayne-Scott implementation subcommittee, and that this will be going back to them, and we'll be hearing from the folks in Wayne-Scott on what their priorities are. And obviously, we've got the funding mechanism. We've got $5.5 million, which will hopefully go a long way to getting a number of these things knocked off the list. So
I forgot to say on my first remarks that the sewage treatment plant, I think we should really look at that. I think David brings up some realistic obstacles, but there's no better time to start than now. If it's possible, let's try to do it. If it's not, at least we will know that. But I also just wanted to say to David's point and to Kathy's that I think they're absolutely right that we now have this implementation plan. We now need to start to think about what we want to do, and then make sure we, coordinate with other agencies so we don't get out over our skis and make a plan that is not possible. So I think whether it's talking to DOT, MTA or private property owners, we should do that before we spend a ton more money to make sure, at least conceptually, we're all on the same page.
So for us, the next step before we do any of that, though, would be to either have further discussion on this plan, have the consultants come back, or look to schedule for public hearings so we can actually adopt the plan, which is the first step to moving forward.
Can you repeat the next steps, if you don't mind? So
we would have to adopt the implementation plan
mhm.
in order to move forward on the recommendations.
Well, I wonder if we would make sure that the implementation plan, I think to David's point, and sort of a pragmatic approach, that DOT would be okay with it, because if we adopt it and then ask, the plan is sort of, can't be accomplished. And I don't know.
So when I look at the PowerPoint presentation, maybe the consultant can speak on this. I see, there's feasibility studies, there's consulting with the DOT is part of the implementation plan before we move forward on that. So I would just ask Jeremy?
I just wondered, Jeremy Samuelson, Planning Department, I just wondered if Vin would share a comment about conversations he's already had on a very preliminary basis with DOT, because there was at least a little bit of back and forth, both because of this conversation and active applications in the area. So I just want you all to benefit from whatever has actually happened so far.
Yeah,
so Vin, if you're still on the line.
Thanks. I would just like clarification from the consultants about what the recommendation is with the DOT presently in the plan, and if, based on comments of the board, perhaps we should look at that recommendation again.
Well, with respect to the improvements that we discussed today, they're relatively low impact stuff. We recently did a pedestrian safety improvement project that ran right through Bridgehampton, where curb extensions were put in and mid-block ped crossings were installed, and that project was done on the DOT, within the DOT right away, and it was done by the town of Southampton using grant money under a highway work permit. So all you have to do is bring a project to the DOT at the conceptual level that's in keeping with their policies, which everything that we have discussed so far is in keeping with DOT policies with respect to complete streets and pedestrian safety. And then you can have the discussion with them with respect to whether they are aware they have a program that they could implement it and put a project on the tip, or whether you want to do it as a local project, which is what Southampton did in Bridgehampton. And the Bridgehampton project, and Fred Deal was involved in that. Bridgehampton project was relatively painless. We got it done during COVID, and it really gave it gives a sense for the business district in Bridgehampton that you are driving in a pedestrian friendly and safe driving area with these series of mid-block ped crossings, curb extensions. And you would have to work out the wrinkle with respect to the bike lane that you have. In Bridgehampton, the bike lane is discontinuous. It stops in the business district, then resumes just east of the high school, and then it runs all the way from there. It's continuous all the way through the Wainscott business district. One of the ways that we got around that in Bridgehampton was to implement some additional signing and identify alternative bike paths for bicyclists using the discontinuous part of the bike lane to go around the downtown for bicyclists. So nothing is insurmountable as long as it's in keeping with DOT's current policy, and everything that we've discussed here is.
I just want to add, when we first set up the working group, we asked, McLean Associates reached out to the DOT and MTA and asked them if they wanted to send a representative. They declined, but everything that is in the report, as Vin has indicated, is consistent with their policies, creating a streetscapes plan and putting in sidewalks and so forth, even if it's part of their right of way.
Yeah, they typically would get involved at this phase, not at the local planning level. The local planning level is really not their It's not in their purview, and they don't want to be in a position where they're supporting one strategy or another. They want it to be community driven. In Bridgehampton, when we got the implementation, they did provide a DOT liaison, because obviously that was specific to Montauk Highway. This is not specific to Montauk Highway. This is Wayne Scott at large. When we get to the elements that are specific to the state facilities, I'm sure the state will be as cooperative here as they were in Bridgehampton.
So in Bridgehampton, you added bump outs for pedestrian crossing. You added a traffic light also.
Right. We converted the one
back to my first comment about flow. I think a lot of the traffic goes north and south is all because of bad flow in that area. And I'll go, how do we make it better at the intersection where the traffic light is right now? Has that discussion ever been done with the DOT so far?
Well, okay, the plan, Wayne Scott Hamlet plan had recommended replacing the traffic light with a roundabout, and then also installing a second one at the entrance to the sand pit, should that get developed.
But and either of them would be on the DOT right away, and they are sort of going to be cornerstones to a potential betterment of a flow and safety.
There's a lot of additional study that would need to be done, and even determination as to whether all the right-of-way is an adequate area for that, or whether additional land would need to be done. There was no appetite to go forward with those two projects when we were meeting with the working group. So there was a push for trying to develop the low-hanging fruit. So that's what we focused on.
Understood.
Part of the issue with respect to traffic flow in Wayne Scott is, believe it or not, the absence of traffic signals, because you have significant side friction at unsignalized intersection locations that doesn't allow for traffic to clear either from side streets or from Montauk Highway and onto side streets. And East Hampton has a policy that they like to limit or restrict any additional traffic signal. So it limits the toolbox, and that's why the roundabouts were considered. DOT looks favorably generally on roundabouts, but they have a very specific design process that you have to follow. First, it's a feasibility study to size the roundabout, and then to determine its appropriateness, and then to move on from there. And I think with respect to right-of-way, it's almost certain that the traffic volumes would require some form of a two-lane roundabout in these locations, just because of the volume, the east-west volume on Montauk Highway. And that would say almost certain, without a doubt, that the right-of-way does not exist. So it will be an acquisition process. That would be, you're talking about a long-term, if you're going to consider roundabouts, you're talking about a 15 to 20-year process if you really do want to pursue them. But like I said, the issue of traffic flow, the impediments to traffic flow on Montauk Highway are the cause of the traffic driving through neighborhoods to get around the congestion on Montauk Highway. And one of the tools to address that is a series of coordinated traffic signals, and to smooth flow on the arterial, so people are less likely to shortcut into the neighborhoods. You have a community that you want to be a certain way, so there are trade-offs for everything.
Well, I was going to agree with David and say that maybe now is a good time to look at the traffic circle, because it is sort of in the middle of everything. And if we're going to do it before we bury the lines or before we fix the sidewalks, if it's 15 to 20 years, maybe I'm reconsidering. But I would hope that.
But you certainly could do the initial feasibility stuff, and then speak to the DOT as to their, whether they would consider it as a local project. DOT will consider anything as a local project, but that doesn't mean they'll approve it.
Agreed, but the thing of it, if you do a feasibility study, and that could be part of the priority listing of funds to be spent on.
Sure.
If you do a location that there might be one and you knew what the size of it might be, you wouldn't put a junction box in the middle of it.
Right, of course, right.
You wouldn't put, you wouldn't put water lines in the middle of it. You would appropriately put those in positions for potential future needs 25, 30 years out. So about trying to spend good taxpayer money right now is looking at that 3, 5, 10, 25, 50 years out. If this is something that's going to come long-term down the road right now, then too, we want to make sure you might position the needed infrastructure in a way coordinated when you have the first chance to do it right now. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's all about balancing. It's all about balancing every element, and within timeframes, without spatially, and within,
A little bit of money right now in the feasibility study with that aspect might save millions of dollars later down the road from moving stuff. If we do it correctly.
So can we talk, we're going to have a discussion among the board members and then we can open it up one more time. So can we just talk process for a second? So I wasn't realizing that the next step that was being proposed is now we're going to adopt this into the comprehensive plan, because then it requires obviously public hearings, it requires a SECRA and all of that, as opposed, and that's time before we can roll up our sleeves and get to work. As opposed to, if we don't adopt it into the comprehensive plan, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, we can pick off projects, do EAFs for each individual project and start working down the list. So I think we need to talk, decide.
I wasn't suggesting to adopt it into the comprehensive plan, but don't we have to adopt the plan?
Was it part of, it was referenced in the Hamlet study, the implementation plan? So
you don't, if you need to research, I mean.
I think it would have to, you would have to have public hearings and have it adopted for the entire plan. But I'll look into it and get you a more solid answer on that.
Yeah, I mean, to your point.
Want to keep things moving. Yeah.
To your point, Kathy, I mean, we have already, the Hamlet study has been adopted. This basically, sort of teases that out a little bit more. And so I would be okay with, using specific projects from this and then focusing on those. I don't know the best way, but I think it's a good point.
I just want to know the correct way to be able to take those projects out of this plan.
The last thing I would like to say is that anybody out there listening, and this is sort of a general statement from me with all projects, anybody who thinks we're missing something or wrong about the whole thing or a part of it, I think it's really, now is the time to give us feedback. Don't sit there and think, oh, the town board is being, silly to consider these things. We really want to hear all sides so that before we move forward, we are informed.
Yeah, I just want to echo that because I think this has much wider implications than just what happens in Wainscott. There are probably most of the population travel this route at least once a week, if not more. So, as changes come to this area, it will affect the entire town residency. So I think having that public input is critical.
Okay, well, Pat, he hadn't spoken yet, so, and he had his hand up. Welcome, Pat. Long time no see.
Yes, it's been a while. Thank you, Madam Supervisor, members of the board. As I think most of you know, I'm a business owner, or my family's a business owner in
Mention your name for the
Wainscott.
record, Pat, if you don't mind. Just put your name on
Sorry,
the
Pat Trunzo, East Hampton resident. Is a business owner in Wainscott, and I participated in the working group to help develop this implementation plan. I have a suggestion. The very first thing you will need to do, and I think will help with all of the things you've just discussed amongst yourselves, is to get the right-of-way of the highway precisely located by surveyors. And I know from my own experience, even the state DOT does not know exactly where their right-of-way is, because I've had to chase them, the water authority, and I had to give an easement to National Grid to go across my property or my family's property with their gas line. And when the water mains were extended in Waynescott, I had the water authority planting the meters on what they thought was the right-of-way because the gas line was further in. And they said, oh, well, the gas line's there, so we're in the right-of-way. I said, no, I'm afraid you're not. The property line is actually fairly close to the pavement. So anyway, I'm in favor of the streetscape improvements. I heard what the illustrious chairwoman of the Waynescott CSC said at the beginning because I was watching on Zoom. And I pretty much agree with everything she recommended to you. So get that right-of-way located. We can see what the feasibilities are for sidewalks. And by the way, I'm someone who does try to walk in Waynescott. I go from my office to the seafood shop or to Goldberg's. And I don't feel safe until I get in front of Home Goods, which has a sidewalk. So I'd like to see that. Of course, I've learned the challenges for sidewalks are greater than they used to be. They now have to be 5 feet wide for ADA compliance. So let's see where that right-of-way is, and we can see where we're at and what the opportunities are to at least add some sidewalks and other streetscape improvements in Waynescott. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Carolyn, you've already spoken. If you could just keep it brief.
Super brief. I stand completely behind what Mr. Trenzo says. I think that's the first step, and I think that was articulated in the report. Mm-hmm. So get your facts straight, and I think that we cannot let this project to improve the streetscape get bogged down in the very complicated question about the roundabout. I appreciate not wanting to be very thoughtful about how taxpayer dollars are spent, but I think that project, as was indicated by the gentleman who's the consultant, is so far down the road, it would be a shame to delay everything for the next 15 to 20 years in order to just know whether there's going to be a roundabout or not. So
I think you misinterpreted my comments there. It was mostly that you can incorporate any potential things 15, 20, 30 years down the road into the actions that could happen within the next 2 to 3 years, if not less than that, then too.
The problem is there isn't the space right now,
We don't know that where the space is yet, so that's the first step.
It's complicated.
Correct.
Okay. David, keep it quick. You need to do it at the podium so that the folks at home can hear you.
Mine is a question. My personal impression, and I may certainly be wrong, is that roundabouts sort of slow down traffic. And that's, I think, what some of them are intended to do. And that means that drivers will go around residential streets. So I guess my question is to whoever's the right professional to answer it. What is the general experience of what do roundabouts speed, let's say traffic going east, in this particular case, let's say, where there's a lot of traffic, mostly going east-west, and then you might have people coming from the north or south. Is a professional view that a roundabout is more likely to speed up east-west traffic or to slow it down? And if it slows it down, then it seems obvious that traffic will be going on residential streets. So is there already a professional opinion on what effect roundabouts will have on east-west traffic?
We'll ask. Dan, can you just give us the 60-second top line about
roundabouts are primarily safety, used for safety enhancement. DOT actually requires consideration of roundabout as one of the alternatives that you investigate when you're contemplating installation of a traffic signal, particularly when you have significant right angle crashes or left turn crashes. With respect to throughput, it's a mixed bag. Roundabouts are a mixed bag. They do tend to equitably distribute right away without having to install a traffic signal. So, but it all depends on the balance of traffic, of approach traffic volumes. In this case, I said before that the through movement would probably require a 2-lane roundabout, which affords side street access a little bit better because the dominant approaches don't dominate the capacity in the roundabout. But again, it's all balancing. It's a balancing act. I think a single lane roundabout would certainly be an impediment to traffic flow on Montauk Highway right now. The DOT has tools that you can relatively quickly assess the performance of a roundabout before you consider it. I don't know that process took place. I think the roundabouts were a result of consensus building, of community consensus rather than specific traffic engineering solution. Obviously need to be subject to additional analysis, just like everything else in the study. Was that 60? Probably. I never speak for only 60 seconds.
It was perfect. Thank you, Vin. Okay. All right. I think we're going to wrap up this discussion. I'm sure you've got a Wainscott CAC meeting coming up, and I'm sure it'll be on the top of the agenda. So thanks for joining us today. Okay. So now we're going to move on.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, folks. Lisa, Peter, Vin, for joining us today via Zoom. We appreciate it. And I'm sure Kate and Jeremy will be getting back to you once we've all had a chance to digest it.
Terrific. Thanks.
And the report.
Thank you. Yeah.
Have a nice holiday.
Thank you
You
for
as
your
well.
work.
Be safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're up to liaison reports. Tom?
Yep. Amagansett Citizens Advisory Committee will be meeting next Monday, the 8th, 6:30 p.m. at the Amagansett School Library. Eric Shantz from the Housing Department will be the guest speaker. For Human Services, the Senior Center, last week we had a talk about hurricane preparedness there. There's next Tuesday a blood pressure and screening provided by the East Hampton Healthcare Foundation from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We want to thank them immensely for doing that. It's so important in preventative medicine. Just nutrition numbers for the week. The congregate meal count on average has been 70, and the unduplicated count for the grab and go this week has been 75. From the Fire Marshal's Department, he just wanted a reminder out there for 4th of July to leave fireworks up to the professionals. They're not only illegal, they can cause serious injuries and fatalities, and they do cause fires. With the scourge of pine beetles right now, there's an immense fire load of dead wood out there, so please be cognizant. Peconic Estuary, just had some dialogue going with Dr. Novak there regarding irrigation and the correct amount of water needed. I know this was a topic of a lot of media coverage last year, but just want to make sure that you're only applying up to 1.5 inches of water per week beyond rainfall. Do not water between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Also, irrigation systems should ideally not operate when it's raining and should be equipped with a rain sensor, water sensor, or an EPA water sensor. Information on how to implement the most environmentally efficient and water protective systems are available on peconicestuary.org. Fort Hill Cemetery, just wanted a reminder, again, 4th of July, a lot of people like to use that for the 4th of July celebrations, for visual. Please, if you do go there, respect that this is a sacred site of burial for people and to use it appropriately. I'm going to skip the next one because I think, David, you're going to talk to that. And lastly, emergency preparedness. We had a committee meeting last Friday, concluded first part of the plan review, which is finalizing the educational content piece for the the emergency preparedness plan. And we will be updating the town website in the next month or two.
Great. Thank you, Tom.
Last night, the Montauk Citizens Advisory Committee met. There are a lot of positives out of that meeting. They're extremely happy about the initiative that the town board has put forward with working within Montauk Chamber of Commerce with their the morning litter patrols or standing ovations for the Chamber of Commerce and the individual that we have doing that. Downtown Montauk and the business community is very happy for that. I'm going to save anything else I have, but we could talk about that next week. But mostly I want to go into the great celebrations that many families and friends have had recently in the last 2 weeks. This goes anywhere if you're a Montauk Mustang, if you're going to be a Springs Osprey, East Hampton Bonacker, Ambigans, or even Wainscott, and it goes to graduation. It's a time-honored tradition that we have, graduation from pre-K, from kindergarten to 8th grade, 3rd grade, and now even to seniors on there. My daughter, my 4 daughters graduated this past week, and it was a wonderful celebration. I want to thank the East Hampton School Board members, and everyone for putting that on. I even want to thank the community for helping shape all our children that are out there in East Hampton and all our hamlets right now to become wonderful individuals and wonderful students. And they're going to go make a positive impact on the world. Very simply, being a town employee myself, I would like to also mention a couple of the names of the graduating seniors for individuals that have children or family members are there. Class of 2024 of East Hampton High School, we had Emma McRory, Lola Garneau, Alonzo Mosley, Elena Sarlo, Meredith Brown, Madison Brennan, Marianne Brennan, Liliana Halub, Joseph Nesbitt, Sophia Rodriguez, Riley O'Donnell, Dylan Manser, Ali Schaefer, Chase Siska, and last but definitely not least, Tom's daughter Scarlett and my daughter Brighton. And two, if you saw what happened at these graduations, and specifically the high school graduation, you will look at us up here, sometimes agree to disagree on things, but one thing we will agree with is that the future of East Hampton is very bright, and very bright because of our educators and our community. So congratulations to all the seniors. I look forward to seeing you in life, and please do us very well. That's all I have.
Thank you, David. Kate? Yes, I'm going to put off my liaison report until next week, and that is because the Wainscott CAC is not meeting. This is going to meet after the 4th, so I'll just put that off till next week.
Yes, Spring CAC met June 18th, and on the agenda was a frequent item that we've all talked about, which is traffic and bike and pedestrian safety. There's some specific ideas about a roadway to do that, and what I told them is what I'll say now, which is I think that this is something on everybody's mind, and I think we should look holistically as a town about how to move people around safely. And so I mentioned this, I think, my last liaison report of looking at right-of-ways and where there's room, but rather than taking a real small section and, one community or another, I think we should look holistically so that the flow of bikes and pedestrians and vehicles is as safe as it can be everywhere. Groundwater testing also came up that was also presented during the public portion at this meeting. And then the big topic was Springs Dog Park, and a few things that came out of that. There was some concern about, I think, through COVID, Zoom meetings and not knowing when that committee was going to meet. I am committed to holding those meetings in person and making sure that the public is invited and knows when the meetings are happening. That said, the quality of the conversation of this particular topic has not always been constructive. And so while I remain committed to being transparent and open and inviting the public, that doesn't mean that people are going to be able to shout down conversation. So I think it's important that everybody realizes that this is a process still, as I've said from the start. Through a lot of noise, I think there's been some very good ideas. But frankly, we're only going to come up with the best plan for everybody if we can be civil with one another. And I look forward to doing that. So before the next Springs Park Committee, everybody should look for that posted online to know when it's happening and come attend. The big liaison news that I have is housing. I'll mention it again as I did last time. The first time home buyers assistance program is open, as is a request for applications for any affordable housing project. Please visit the website or contact the housing department for more information. And very, very soon, accessory dwelling units are going to be assistance might be available for that. The county, ADU +1, which is a Suffolk County project, is launching in August, and I think there's going to be information available actually currently, and hopefully the town will coincide our own assistance program with the county ADU +1. We've also made good progress, and this was talked about today with the workforce housing presentation we had during a work session. I think we've made progress on senior housing, talking about increasing the density there, which I'm very, very happy about. We'll see how that goes. I'm also looking forward, hopefully, to talking about workforce housing generally, because I think Lori Wiltshire and the Ruddy application brought up some really interesting points that we need to look at town-wide. And if we're looking at workforce housing specifically, I think we also have to take a step back, and Supervisor Burke-Gonzalez has pointed this out, that, we want to, every once in a while, it's important to look at all of our code. And so if we're looking at new changes or new additions, that we ought to look at affordable housing as a whole. And she highlighted a few things that we should talk about, which is the overall density, lot size, and the maximum cap. I don't have any opinion necessarily on which of those should be changed or not, but I think we should talk about it so we all know our options, hear from the public, and give a thoughtful have a thoughtful dialogue and see where that leads. Lastly, I just want to say, and part of this whole conversation, and I think that the work session presentation leads to it, I do think it's important, and I think David might have mentioned this as well, to open this up. The town, I think, has done great work. The East Hampton Housing Authority has done great work. There's been a lot of progress here. But I think we want all hands on deck, and the idea of having, private developments that help to solve this need are very, very good. And so I think that came out in this conversation through David and Lori. Again, the details are going to be complicated, but I just want to highlight that as a point that I want to welcome, that not all affordable housing has to run through the town. I think if it serves the purpose and the need that we have, I support it, and I look forward to talking more.
Thank you, Ian. Okay, so I'm going to continue to share during the summer the East Hampton Town Police Department statistics, because I think it's important that folks understand what our men and women in the police department are up against. We had a busy weekend this past weekend. As folks know, President Biden was in town, and the presidential detail went off smoothly. There were no major issues. There were traffic jams along the motorcade route that were difficult for all, but the police department's not allowed to post anything specific on detours or timing for security reasons, so they had no ability to mitigate the issues. David touched on East Hampton graduation. That was extremely well attended and went off well. Our officers did the best they could to clear the traffic following it. So from Friday morning, 6 a.m. to Monday morning at the same time, we had 262 calls for service, including 26 residential noise complaints, 2 commercial noise complaints, both with decibel level readings that were under the limit. There were 17 motor vehicle accidents and 42 medical aided cases. 86 vehicle and traffic citations were issued. The town police department made 22 arrests, including our plainclothes SLA enforcement detail, which netted 2 violations for sale to a minor, and there were 8 DWIs. The TCOs issued 142 parking summonses. I think we can all agree that summer is in full swing here. East Hampton CAC, they have canceled their meetings for July and August, and we will be addressing issues via email if necessary. We sent out last week a press release announcing the completion of the Ditch Plains Beach Recovery Project. That was phase 1. So now we have, maybe it's not a real word, a bathable beach. We've got 2 lifeguard stands down there, and it's business as usual now at Ditch Plains. So I also encourage folks to follow the town's social media, because there's a lot of postings that are going out about what beaches are open, guarded, the times of day, talks about riptide and how to address that, what the different flag colors mean. So I think it's a good follow for folks to get information about what's happening in our community. I also want to share, we've had a lot of talk today about roundabouts. I received a letter this morning from the East Hampton Union Free School District, their board president, J.P. Foster, and if you indulge me, I'd like to read it. Dear Ms. Burke-Gonzalez, on behalf of our Board of Education, this letter represents our support for a roundabout to be constructed at the crossroads of Stephen Hans Path, Long Lane, and Two Holes of Water. This intersection has a notorious history of being a very dangerous area of the East Hampton Township where many serious accidents and near misses occur often. We all have family, friends, and a substantial number of our employees that travel this route daily, and we have all heard plenty of stories of stressful and frustrating driving, bicycling, and pedestrian experiences in this particular area. The roundabout located where Route 114, Buell Lane, and Toilsome Lane connect has proven to be successful, giving the public and community a safe way to travel without disruption of the flow of traffic. The particular roundabout was also constructed in a way that does not take away from the rural character of the area. We welcome an improved and safe way to travel for our town's daily commuters and would like to see the project begin as soon as possible. Sincerely, J.P. Foster, Board President. Next, I just wanted to mention that we closed on the Cabaz property, the front 7 acres, and our next step will be to remove the structures, which will be subject to the bid process. An update on parkland alienation legislation for 3 Mile Harbor, Springs Fireplace Road, and North Main Street, as we would like to incorporate a roundabout there as well. We're waiting now for Senator Palumbo's office to send the legislation to the governor for her signature. I've been in touch with the governor's office, communicating the importance of this measure to our community, and I've also stressed that this legislation is time sensitive if we wish to have the referendum on the ballot this November. Just 6 months in to our new administration, the supervisor's office has been very busy meeting with our governmental and non-governmental partners. Recently, we've met with Cornell Cooperative Extension, PSE&G. The folks from Optimum came in last week, and I've requested a town board work session presentation on their plan for fiber optics moving forward. Also met with Carol Longworth, the VP of Regional Director of Empire State Development, and we talked a lot about the pro-housing community pledge and the application, which we're looking to finalize and submit by the end of this month. And David and I toured the East Hampton Food Pantry to better understand their needs. Meetings coming up later this month just to get an update. I'll be meeting with Meals on Wheels, getting tours of the Montauk Food Pantry and the Springs Food Pantry, and I'm looking to meet with the Eastville Historical Society to see how we can collaborate with them moving forward. And lastly, I'm going to ask LTV to put up a photo. We've been very blessed here at Town Hall. We've got the folks from Change Hampton who have put in an incredible garden here for us all to enjoy. It's incredible. You watch people walking down the path. Everybody whips out their phone, taking pictures of the plantings, using the QR code to get a list of the deer-resistant plants that are in this garden. We also have the East Hampton Garden Club that have a garden as you come up the path adjacent to the town clerk's office. I just wanted to note, Jason or Zach, can we get that photo up that I sent earlier?
Yes, I think this is it.
Beautiful. So what's happened is beautiful. So the garden up front, it hasn't been weeded the way they normally do, because when they got in there to weed, they found a nest with 4 baby birds, and we're hoping that the mother was going to be mother bird was going to be returning later last night. And I know the garden club, I was talking to Beverly Kasikas and her husband Mike, who were here weeding and had to halt operations because we didn't want to disturb the nests. So we've got new members here at Town Hall that we have to keep an eye on and keep safe. So that's what I have for today. And if we could, I know we don't have a meeting this Thursday because it falls on 4th of July. So this meeting and our work session on Tuesday, July 9th at Montauk, we're going to be doing more resolutions than we normally do because of the lack of a Thursday night meeting. So Tom, if you want to start us off with resolutions, please.
Thank you. Resolution 2024-858 is for a note to bidders for the installation sanitation HVAC system. The bids open July 3rd. A pre-bid meeting and site visit will be held at 11 a.m. on Friday and Monday, July 15th. And bids are due by 3 p.m. on July 25th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Bid 859 to accept a bid EH 24-019 for the supply and delivery of food items for June 2024. The bid has been awarded to Milvia Foods of New York, Inc.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
860 is for a check issue refund for the town clerk and the sanitation departments. The first is in the amount of $2,340 for a boat slip to Morton Settlement, and the second is for $65 for recycling, and that is for John C. Kircher.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm proud to offer Resolution 2024-861. This is appoint seasonal lifeguards for June 2024. Listing through September 16, 2024, names, positions, pay rates, and retroactive dates listed below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
862 is appoint seasonal employee in the Parks Department, Derwin Rodriguez, an hourly rate of $21 an hour, effective retroactive to June 24, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
863 is appoint seasonal employee in the Buildings and Grounds Department, Gabrielle Colombo, an hourly rate of $21 an hour, retroactive to June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
864 is appoint student intern 1 in the Aquaculture Department, Max Higgins, hourly rate of $16.75, retroactive to June 24th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
865 is approve volunteers in the Shellfish Hatchery. Nick Wagner, Yuan Nathan, Gwen O'Donnell, Debbie Fabro, retroactive to June 17th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
866 is a title change and amend the rates for lifeguards for June 2024 to the individuals listed below the pay rates and the retroactive dates of the amended rates.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 867 is to authorize a CPF acquisition and amend the 2024 stewardship plan. Property location was 327 Fairview Ave, Montauk. Purported owner was O'Connell Family Irrevocable Asset Management Trust, tax map 300-19-9-20. We had the public hearing on June 20th, 2024. The purchase price is not to exceed $300,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 868 is a notice of bidders for EH 24-028. This is for the Joint Fuel Facility Maintenance Service bid. The bid is available July 3rd, 2024. The bid is due back July 17th, 2024. Please contact the purchasing department at 631-324-4183 for further information.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 869 is accept the bid for EH 24-021 for surplus oyster seed for 2024 to John Nicholas for the East Hampton Oyster Company and Robert Waif at JBH of Peconic DBA Eel Town Oysters.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I have Resolution 870, which is a notice of public hearing to accept a scenic easement for urban renewal parcel. And this is, please take notice that the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing on July 18th at 6 p.m. to hear to hear comments of all persons wishing to be heard concerning the following grant of a scenic and conservation easement. The grantor is Unifam LLC. It's a scenic and conservation easement. The date of the easement is June 7th, 2024. It's located at 221 3 Mile Harbor Road, East Hampton, Suffolk County tax map number 300-144-3-10.001.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. A Resolution 871 is to accept grant of scenic easement, scenic and conservation easement from Peter Joyce, and a public hearing was held on June 20th, 2024, to accept the proposed grant and resolve that the town accepts the easement listed below and authorizes and directs the supervisor to execute the same. The grantor is Peter Joyce. It's a scenic and conservation easement. The date of the easement is April 2nd, 2024. It's located at 10 Fall Street, Montauk, Suffolk County tax map number 300-28-5-8. The reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 872 is a budget modification in the Planning Department, and this is from budget line health insurance in the amount of $3,000 to office expense in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 873 is to authorize travel and expense reimbursement for Nicole Shipman and Rachel Satchelman. This is the New York State Association of Magistrates and Courts Clerk, Inc. will hold the annual training conference 2024 from September 29th to October 2nd in Niagara Falls, New York. And this is whereas two clerks, Nicole Shipman and Rachel Satchelman, are hereby authorized to attend the annual training conference and be reimbursed for conference registration, travel, meals, and lodging for the amount not to exceed $4,000.
Second.
All in favor?
I'd like to move for discussion.
Sure.
This came up obviously on a call earlier today. I just want to state my position here, which is that investing in the training of our town employees to be the best they can is something I thoroughly believe in and support. I believe the interpersonal interactions you get and knowledge gaining by being at an in-person event like this is critical. So just going forward, if these opportunities do arise for our town employees to deliver better service to the community on the whole, I think it's something that, you know, I will be behind going forward.
I agree with you,
Well
Tom.
said. So we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 874 is to accept road widening easement, URP 85 and SP 2-2. And this is pursuant to local law. The town board of the town of East Hampton adopt urban renewal plans covering lot layout improvements for old filed map. Resolved, the town board approves and accept the easements and direct below. And this is the grantor is JCH1 LLC. And this is urban renewal parcel 85 SP 2-2, 365 block 14, lots 19 through 26, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-076-03-026.001. This is located on 11th Street. It's a road widening easement, and the date is 5/30/2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 875 is to accept undertaking and security for urban renewal parcel 116B in SP 2-2. And this is, again, for the development of old filed maps within the town. The town's consulting engineer and planning board have assigned the parcels listed below to specific work being accomplished. So the applicant is 1-16 Street LLC. The urban renewal parcel is 116B, SP 2-2, map 365, block 19, lots 16 through 25, and part of 26, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-081-001-001-.005, and this is in the amount of $24,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Next is 876, and this is a budget modification for Justice Court. This is moving from health insurance in the amount of $10,000 to outside stenography in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I have Resolution 877, and this is approval of various special events. All of these events will take place at the Arts at Duck Creek and as part of their 2024 Family Gathering Series. The first is Giancarlo Filippa Children's Music. This is retroactive to 7/1/2024. It's 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And the next one is Art Activity, 7/8/2024, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. The next one is 123 Andre's Music, Children's Music. This is from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. The next one is Shinnecock Perspectives. This is taking place Monday, 7/22/24, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Next is Art Activity. That will take place Monday, 7/29, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. The next is Goat on a Boat Puppet Show. That will take place on Monday, August 5th, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. The next one is Floor Bromley, which is a children's concert. That's 8/12 from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Next is an art activity on Monday, 8/19, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And lastly, an art activity taking place Monday, 8/26, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have Resolution 2024-878. It's to authorize a payment to Endeavor, and this is an outstanding past due invoice in the amount of $2,300. $320.50.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have Resolution 879. This is amend Resolution 2023-1413 for Gear Stars for Fisheries. We changing it to add, if a leaseholder seeks to rent more than one unit, but no more than 3 units, total at a time, a deposit of only $1,000 shall be required. There is, I do have in the third whereas clause to say west. The third whereas clause.
So I have a second as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 880 is approval of various special events for July 2024. The following special event permits are hereby approved with the condition agreed upon by the reviewing committee. First is Clearwater Beach Association, Clearwater Beach Property Owners Annual Party. This will take place Saturday, July 13th, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Next is Travis Field Memorial Scholarship Fund, Travis Field Memorial Scholarship Softball Tournament at Terry King Ball Fields. This will take place August 2nd, Sunday, August 4th from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. The rain dates are August 8th through August 11th, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. Next up, we have Hampton's Lifeguard Association, their third annual Run, Swim, Run, which is a fundraiser for the HLA. This takes place on Friday, July 12th, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. The rain date is July 13th at the same times. Next is the Hampton's Lifeguard Association Annual Nipper Tournament, water-based events at Albert's Landing Beach, Monday, July 29th, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Next up is the annual Nipper Tournament land-based events at Atlantic Avenue Beach, Tuesday, July 30th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Next up is the Hampton's Lifeguard Association Annual Junior Lifeguard Tournament Land and Sea Events. This is at Atlantic Avenue Beach, Amagansett, Saturday, August 3rd, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Sunday, August 4th, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Next up is Hampton's Lifeguard Association second annual Atlantic Digs Charity Softball Tournament. This is, volleyball tournament, which is much more appropriate to be taking place at Atlantic Avenue Beach, Amagansett, on Saturday, August 17th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Sunday, August 18th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Finally, the Hampton's Lifeguard Association Red Devil Swim will take place at Atlantic Avenue Beach, Amagansett, Saturday, August 31st from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. and Sunday, September 9th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have Resolution 2024-881 is to appoint East Hampton Volunteer Ocean Rescue members for June 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
882 is to accept an updated proposal, engineering for tower construction and administration, All Points Technology Corporation, PC. And as the town has recognized that the scope for services related to the Panago Road Tower must be expanded, and All Points has provided an updated proposal. And this is at a total cost of the town of $2,200.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
883 is to accept proposal EH 2024-107. This is for professional engineering services for the town projects, and this is with LK McLean Associates Engineering and Surveying, DPC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
884 is to amend Resolution 2024-298, retain Campolo, Middleton, and McCormick LLP. And this is where the town board desires to amend this resolution to authorize the work completed by Campolo, Middleton, and McCormick LLP on behalf of the East Hampton Planning Board, including but not limited to preparing submissions to the New York State DEC Commissioner. And this was in regard to the dispute between the town board and the planning board over lead agency for the new senior center.
Second.
And let me just say, this is in an amount not to exceed $14,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
885 is to retain Howard Bergerson Esquire for municipal CON, Certificate of Need. Howard Bergerson Esquire has submitted a proposal to the town to provide legal services related to obtaining a municipal certificate of need from the New York State Department of Health, and this is an amount not to exceed $10,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
886 is to amend Resolution 2024-848 to authorize a payment for past due FedEx invoice in the amount of $12.10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so there any other matters we need to discuss? Okay.
So I make a motion, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for CPF, personnel, litigation, and advice of counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a safe 4th of July and be careful out there. There's a lot of people, a lot of traffic. Slow down. And we'll see you next Tuesday in Montauk. Thank you, LTV.